have spent this entire day like living in this movie, reading additional like trivia and whatnot, analyses of things. Not a lot of analyses of things. I was mostly just looking to see if anybody else was picking on themes of it being kind of like a spaghetti western, which I found like one article that said so, and it was for different reasons than I think it. So I'm beginning to wonder if I might just be wrong. But
you're not. I picked up on that.
Well, I mean, what am I going to do? Significantly entertain that
Because-
concept? I mean, come on.
We can talk about it when we get into it, but I've watched a lot of spaghetti westerns this year because we rewatched the whole Dollars trilogy. So I would be very happy to discuss that when we get into it.
When we get into it, but that's going to be
I
after
love
we're
spaghetti.
done. I also, what is our spaghetti policy like on this podcast?
Pro.
High spaghetti. Al
Get
dente.
to the ghouls. I want to talk about movies.
I was
right.
like,
No
I
more
want to
goofs.
go to
All
sleep.
day.
We gotta get
Welcome
through this.
back.
No goofs, just
Welcome back to the
ghouls.
chaos of Gabbing the Ghouls, which is the intro segment to the Casual Obsession Horror Movie Podcast, the horror movie podcast where we talk about horror movies. Y'all remember The Night House? I fucking love The Night House. I watched it with Becca again the other day because she forgot about the fact that she had seen it and wanted to watch something scary, suspenseful, and I was like, ooh, you know what's good is The Night House. And then like literally 30 seconds into the movie, she goes, oh, I think I've seen this before, but leave it on. I love it. And
Nice.
it holds the
Nice.
fuck up. I do recall, Emma, you really disliked the ending on it, did you not?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking about you really liked it and you wanted us to talk about it for the podcast. And I was like, I'm willing to watch it again, and maybe now that I know what to expect, I'll have different opinions about it.
Right.
But I haven't watched it again.
So
I
I
still
haven't
just
watched
hated
it
the
yet, so
ending.
I actually
neither,
would love
yeah.
to visit it for the podcast.
neither of you, really. I would really like to hear what all of you think about it in a more focused discussion kind of context. Tell you what.
Hell yeah.
I learned some stuff about it, though, recently. Apparently, it was originally written to be David Bruckner's Hellraiser.
Yeah.
Oh, I was
And
just about to
then-
say, speaking of David Bruckner,
Yeah.
I rewatched Hellraiser.
Nice.
Wait your turn, Nina. It's
I
not your
know.
turn to
Yeah,
go.
I know,
I
but
got
that,
like
you know.
I got like 2-3 more ghouls, but I will be quick about most of them. Anyway, so I thought it was neat watching The Night House again with that context for what it originally was, and I can definitely see where a lot of like Hellraiser elements would sit in it, but I do also think that they managed to give it enough life of its own in changing it into something else. Really just still love the movie though. I was talking about Three from Hell last time, I believe, wasn't I?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I don't remember.
No, I think you messaged me directly.
I thought.
Oh
Or it
no,
was
we
in the
talked
chat.
about it we talked about it kind of briefly off pod
In the bonus
when we were
episode.
recording the bonus episode. That's right. Okay, so I watched
Right.
Rob Zombie's Three from Hell, and I did talk about it a little bit in the Discord. It's listen. Anyways,
Now let me ask an important question.
yeah.
Is this it's truly a shame that Rob Zombie never finished the Firefly trilogy and it ended perfectly with the one that's
With The
named I
Devil's
can't remember
Rejects.
right. With the Devil's Rejects.
I am sorely tempted to say this.
Damn.
But in any case,
Sorry, Rob.
that had me wanting to watch more Rob Zombie because despite this, I do still like him. So I watched his Halloween.
I love his Halloween.
You know
I have come
what?
around so hard on his Halloween.
Yeah, wow.
It's really nasty,
It's
but it's
so nasty.
really
it's
kind of good.
It's making some.
Did you watch the
choices,
second
right?
one?
But like, I have not watched the second one just yet. I have been alternately warned and like recommended his second one. Some people caution me away from it.
I would like
Others
to echo
say-
that same sentiment of be ready, but it is if you don't. Okay. so
This is what
gonna
every
sound really
recommendation
stupid,
ends up
right?
sounding like. Every recommendation is you've got to know what you're getting into, but it's good.
Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is good if you think of it as a Rob Zombie movie first and a Halloween movie second.
That makes sense. And that's definitely in
understand-
keeping with the first as well, I think.
Yeah, it's one of those I understand why John Carpenter hates Rob Zombie's Halloweens.
Yeah, that makes
Which
sense.
I think his hate is a slight mix of him being like, this kind of sucks ass, and also him being like a little bit of a meme lord. So, you know.
He is. Carpenter's
does
a little
not
bit
care
of a
for
troll
it.
about certain things.
Oh, yeah. He's been a dickhead his entire career. It's pretty great.
I was just talking to Becca about this earlier. No, actually, you know what? I'm going to talk about this later when we get into the rest of the movie, because we're going to.
We have the whole rest of the podcast to talk about John Carpenter.
Probably 6-hour-long podcast to talk about John Carpenter.
That's so good.
Okay, so I really enjoyed Rob Zombie's Halloween, though. It's an interesting and different take on it, which I welcome. I think it was neat. I thought it there was a moment where I was like, oh, you know what, from a certain perspective this might be Rob Zombie's best work. I don't personally think that, but like I definitely see how you could think that.
No, I'm with you on that. It's annoying, the line that it straddles.
Yeah.
Because his Loomis is frankly inspired.
Yeah. 100%. I love his fucking Loomis. Oh my god.
You're gonna love his second movie, Loomis, who is the natural conclusion to the worst guy you've ever known.
Hell yeah.
Oh, it's peak Loomis.
All right, so other things that I've watched, though. Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. It is silly and ridiculous as shit, and I had fun watching it, as I always do with Friday the 13th sequels. Also, oops, just dropped my phone. We all watched VHS Beyond?
I think we did.
How are we feeling about that? General big positive, right? I really enjoyed it.
Genuinely, yeah.
Fun as hell. Love it.
I think 94 is still my favorite.
Yes.
Just because 94 has Radma and The Terror, which are like maybe my top
Terror,
two.
wildly underrated segment to me.
Which one?
And I think it's because
I never know their names.
That's the Michigan terrorist group.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
I fucking love that short. Yeah. It's really good.
It's one of my favorite short films, like point blank period. But Beyond was really good. Obviously, Mike and Katie hit it out of the park. Not even a question.
Huge fan of that one.
Obviously.
Yeah.
I was thinking about a different version of that story that wasn't as good being kind of popular, but I can't. Did we talk about this? You and I talked about this. It doesn't. Noah and I talked about this, but it doesn't matter. If I remember, I'll bring it up. But I remember there being something that we were bitching about, and I was like, you know what? Stowaway just did that same story but better, and now I can't remember what it is.
I do remember us talking about that, but my brain is mush right now.
Same.
So.
But yeah,
oh
overall,
my gosh,
positive.
I can't believe you didn't stop immediately and write it down for the podcast.
I know, we're big dumb
Noah.
dummies.
You are
So
not
true.
documenting enough things for this podcast lately. I tell you what.
I tell you, I literally, we are sitting down to Gab Ghouls, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think I watched anything between these last ones. 28 movies.
Yeah, that's a lower
Fucking
number.
You have some
movies.
really big ones.
Yeah.
You've got some really notable ones that I can think
really
of.
does.
Yeah, no, so there's a couple that I'm really strongly going to hit here. And
Yeah.
I'm excited, but I'm not
so
trying to cut it.
excited.
I would like
No,
to
I
say
wanna know-
for
yeah.
our round robin VHS Beyond real quick.
Oh, yeah.
I think that this is a great continuation. Emma in the chat, I can't remember if I actually responded, but Emma was saying, I'm surprised it seems like you didn't like it as much as I did, something like that.
Yeah, because
And
I
I
think
would like
like
to say-
on Letterboxd you rated it 3.5
Yeah.
or something.
It's just because the other ones are so good. I think.
that's okay.
VHS Beyond bounces around. I think it's better. It's easily better than 3. It is better than 99% of 1.
Yeah.
I
It's
thought you said
better-
it's better than 99, which I agree.
I gotta watch
don't
99
know.
again. I want to watch it again after
That's
watching
the thing.
VHS
I thought it was
Beyond,
fine.
actually.
It had one real stinker in it.
I
And Beyond does
yeah.
not have any stinkers, at least.
That's fair.
Yeah, I am mostly positive with it. It's just a couple of the things that I didn't like kind of stuck in me.
Yeah.
But I think it's good. I think that we are in a bold new direction of VHS. We're going to get VHS 8 next year.
Yeah,
and I'm
which is
really stoked
insane.
that they are continuing on with this like VHS trend of a new one every October.
Yeah.
Because
You can
unlike
do that.
unlike other franchise entries where it's like, oh great, we got a new Saw movie every year for 7
Well,
years.
with a VHS movie, it's
Please,
like, well, yeah,
can we do that
5
again?
different directors are going to give us shorts every October.
Exactly.
I'm fucking happy.
And yeah, they
Well,
don't
and they seem to be
reuse directors
having-
too often. They're doing
yeah.
a good job of bringing in new people pretty consistently. So
Mhm.
like, if it's a stinker, okay, I'm
Yeah,
still
whatever.
gonna come back next year because it's gonna be 5 new directors
I want them to
doing
give
something.
Radio Silence another one. I want to see what Radio Silence could do.
Radio Silence has been like very involved in it still. I
Yes,
think
they
they're
have.
like producing now.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
they're because they have their own big stuff they're doing, but I'd love to see another short from them.
Me too.
But yeah, no,
They capture the right sense of humor that
Yeah.
the VHS movies need, because there needs to be
Cast him down.
okay, now do the silly one.
Yeah,
you know,
yes.
there needs to be one that's
Cast
just the
him
right
down.
balance of this is fucked, and also
Yeah.
please give me some levity so I'm not watching 5 of the hardest hitting misery shorts that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is where 99 kind of fails by going too far
Yes.
the opposite direction. It's got a little bit
I-
too much humor. It's too lighthearted, if anything.
Yeah.
I think 94 and 80 whatever.
85.
85.
85. I really liked 85. 85 had one thing going for it that blew my fucking mind on the first watch. So I think currently my rating is like 94, 85, beyond 99. Everything else, 2, I guess, and then
2, 3, 1.
2, 3.
2 space 3 1.
No, I think it's 99 space 2
Aw.
space 3 1.
Yeah, that's
Anyway,
fair.
yeah, I liked Beyond a lot, but mostly I think I liked it a lot. Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think all my gripes with it I wrote up in that article. So
Yeah. Speaking of, have we talked about the
We
website
haven't. I don't
being
think we
live
have.
Not on the
podcast
podcast yet. Yeah,
so,
so the
Noah, do you want to
website's-
talk about that?
I would love to. The website's still a little shaky right now, but right now we have casualhorrorpod.com. It's going to be linked in the description of the podcast and in the video if you're watching the YouTube upload. It'll be in the description of all that. We're going to be putting up reviews. We're going to be putting up articles that we do. It's going to be pretty like casual stuff, kind of like what we're doing here, but a little bit more like dialed in a way.
Personalized.
Yeah, personalized and like
Specific
expanded
to
in
our
a way
interests.
that we don't usually do as much.
I'm excited.
Which is really cool. I'm working on one about watching all 3 of the Human Centipede movies.
Yeah.
And I put up the VHS Beyond one. I know Emma's working on an article about I Saw the TV Glow.
Hell yeah.
You know, we got some stuff cooking. Nina has, I think, 3 or 4 different things that are on the burner.
Yeah, I do, but the main one is I have a rough draft of an article about 2000s, 2010s gothic action horror, because as you all know, I've been living in that genre for the past year and a half or so, and I'm trying to figure out why
Yeah.
why I like it.
And
So-
Jade's going to write something too.
I'm sure that I will.
But yeah, really excited. We're going to keep plugging this from here on out. Give us some patience. The website is still a little shaky at the moment, but it's all coming together. Yeah, we just got to tighten up the pages. The articles are going to start flowing.
Yeah.
Pretty excited.
I'm gonna write the longest essay about I Saw the TV Glow you've ever seen in your life.
Good.
Jade, do you have any more ghouls now that we hijacked with the VHS Beyond and the website?
I do believe that was all of my ghouls, as a matter of fact.
Emma, what about your ghouls?
I haven't watched a single new movie recently.
It happens to the best of us.
It happens to the best of us. I
It
did
does.
watch.
Everyone has their moments.
So I do have things to talk about briefly. Last night, my VTuber friend, we haven't had a movie night in a long time, but she asked me to host a like horror movie night for Halloween.
Oh, nice.
so-
Let's go.
We watched
And
Gone
this is
Jump
coming out
Haunted
on
Asylum and
Oh,
Oddity.
nice. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Excellent. Good double feature of that.
It was a fun time. It was a good time.
man. A double feature of what if things were just so fucked.
what if it was a little bit fucked up to exist for a while?
Surprisingly, so the VTuber has a specific thing of being terrified of The Grudge.
That's
And
so
so-
real. I've never seen it, and I'm also terrified of The Grudge.
Yeah, she's never seen it either, and she said they got scared of it because they watched like PewDiePie or Markiplier or somebody play the Grudge game on the Wii when they were
Oh my
young.
God.
And it
Oh,
just
no.
terrified them.
That's
Aw.
so real,
If you're
though.
listening, I'm
And
not
so
laughing at you.
now-
I'm laughing at the concept of watching gamers.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Shout out VTuber.
I'm
This is a
not
great
gonna
story.
lie. I'm laughing at you. I'm sorry.
I gave her a hard time already.
If it was on
but
the Wii, it couldn't have been scary.
I was like, was it
That's
literally
all I'm
just like a
saying.
little me guy?
Just popping up, hair in their face.
But yes, so she has specified that she has a really hard time with Asian characters that are extremely pale with really dark eyes. And so I had warned her. I had warned her against Ganjam before, but then in like a friend group chat we have with somebody else, me and the other person were talking about watching some horror movies together. And I was like, oh, have you watched this? And she was like, I have, and I love it, and I'd be down to watch it again. I was like, okay, well, we can watch it, and we'll watch something else with Lady Bun Bun. And Lady Bun Bun was like, wait, I want to watch it. And I was like, this is a movie I have warned you about specifically because of triggers you have told me. And she was like, no, I'm brave, I can do it. And so, surprisingly, we watched it. And they were like, I didn't have a hard time with that at all, actually. And I was like,
The
hell
troops
yeah.
who,
Okay.
Lady Bun Bun, watched Ganjam.
But she really liked Oddity a lot.
Nice.
Nice.
And got jump scared real bad by the tent part.
Nice.
That's very
It's
valid.
such a good jump
So
scare.
incredibly valid.
I'm
Yeah.
going to pretend that I've seen it and I get that reference.
Me nodding.
I didn't
sagely,
realize-
yes.
Nice.
Oh yeah, you weren't here for
Yeah,
that
I wasn't
episode.
here for that one.
Dang.
I haven't watched it yet.
And I
meant to.
edited, so you're still going in blind.
Yeah. But I also read a horror novel.
Oh.
Applaud me, please. Thank you. So, my brother invited me to his book club, and for the spooky season, they were wanting to read a horror novel, and so we ended up reading Mexican Gothic.
Ooh, okay. I've heard good things.
Yeah, me too.
I have a copy of it in my house.
Yeah, I very much
saw a
enjoyed
copy
it.
of it, and I was like, at censored local name anyway.
As-
Jamie, get this out.
I'm still fairly new to reading horror literature. I've basically read the horror books we've done for the podcast, and then I read Clown in a Cornfield 2 and 3 as well, because I really enjoyed those books.
Oh, yeah.
And then this one.
Oh, yeah.
And Clown in a Cornfield is like a bit of a different beast since it's like YA horror. I don't know that I could compare the two very well, but of the more like kind of adult horror that we've read, this one has definitely been my favorite. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was creative. There's some SA stuff and some racism stuff, so just as a heads up for that. But overall,
It's in the name,
I had a-
Mexican Gothic. There's going to be
literally. So we had the book club discussion yesterday, and as we were talking, my brother specifically was like, "Oh, this wasn't like I was kind of wanting something that was like scarier, or I was expecting this to be scarier." And I was like, "Yeah, a lot of times Gothic horror stories are not like very scary." And I kind of like explained my Nina talking points about Gothic stories. But then later on in the discussion, people were talking about like, gosh, like the incest was really weird. And I was like, well, that's another
It's a
thing about Gothic literature.
I am so
I was
sorry.
like, it's a little bit of a meme almost, I think, where there's
It
just
is.
always incest in Gothic stories.
It's like you
And it's
picked
there
up the
because
Gothic.
it's supposed to be weird. You're supposed to be put off by it.
It's
the
yeah.
idea.
Why am I reading this Gothic story without incest? Get this shit out of here.
This is a whole. I could get into it, but I won't. I
But
think
it was
that
so
we
much
need
fun.
to. It's. I'm excited to read it eventually. I'm about halfway through my current horror read, and this is something I will say on the podcast as I think it'll pique Emma's interest. This book, it's The Church of the Mountain of Flesh by Kyle Wakefield. I mentioned this
Sounds
earlier this year
religious.
because it had not even come out yet. And I already knew that this book was going to destroy me. And it has. It is about a trans man who makes a deal with, and I'll put it in scare quotes, God, to give him his ideal body in return for building the church. In this tiny little
Oh.
Italian seaside town he lives in. The world building's incredible. There's some like kind of social traditions that they have that are very interesting to do with sculpting that really develop the dysphoria on display is incredible. It's really well handled. Anyway, it's my I Saw the TV Glow. I felt a lot during I Saw the TV Glow to the point where I couldn't talk about it. I'm reading The Church of the Mountain of Flesh, and at one point, like through tears, I had to find a pencil and start annotating because I was like, I think that I'm going to reread this in years to come, and I'm going to want to see what my journey has been. There was a moment where the main character talks about how he got to 28 before acknowledging certain things about himself, or 29, and I was like, oh, fuck.
You're like, God damn it.
God damn it. It's like I read that line and I saw the frame from I Saw the TV Glow of the chalk on the street, and I was like, ah!
You're like, I can't do this.
But just like with, yeah, literally, it's happening again. But like with Between Two Fires, I had to take a break. So I'm about halfway through the book, and I'm like, I don't want to be done yet. At the pace I'm going, I will be done too soon. So I took a break. Anyway.
Can you send me the name of that book again?
Yes, I will send it to you.
Thank you.
It's very good.
I will read
Anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, can I do my ghouls now, or we still do Emma? Does Emma still have some? Because I will.
You go.
Take a step back. Okay. I have watched David Bruckner's Hellraiser again. I watched it. It's still very good. I still really love it. There's really no notes. I just think that everything is so beautiful about it. It still is good after 2 years. I also watched Hellraiser Deader from 2005.
How was that?
It was not as bad as everyone told me it was going to be. It's a lot slower paced, but I think it benefited from the fact that I watched Saw 2004 a few days beforehand. I watched Saw on the 20th and I watched Deader on the 23rd. And I think that because of that, the kind of like, first of all, the 2000-ness of it all, and secondly, the like kind of police procedural storytelling of Deader did not put me off as much as a lot of the people that I saw on Letterboxd who seem to have been doing like Hellraiser marathons. And Deader is solidly at the end of a stretch of really fucking boring Hellraiser direct-to-video sequels.
Yeah.
And because I think most people who watch Deader are watching it in the context of going from like three pretty darned good Hellraisers to all of this bullshit for forever and ever. I think that Deader is just another nail in the coffin. But for me, who had taken a long break from Hellraiser sequels and then came back to this right after watching Saw, I had a lot of fun. I really liked a lot of the storytelling and the gore, and there's a big sex train. There's like there's a subway car that's just a sex club full of deviants having sex, and I was having a great time.
Yeah, okay.
Did you see the TikTok I posted of Duolingo dressed up as Hellraiser and torturing somebody?
That's so good. Oh my god. But yeah, no. Obviously Pinhead was not in it, but the main conceit of not in it that much. He was in it for like 5 total minutes.
So he's in it, but
it's
only to be against character type and at the very end.
He wasn't that against character type, not as much as in some other movies.
Oh my god, yeah.
So honestly, I think the conceit of the movie was one of the more interesting Hellraiser setups. It made sense to me. It was like, oh, there's a sex cult that's figured out how to bring people back to life, and they have the cube, and they want the cube open. And Pinhead's like, I would rather they stop fucking with my domain, please. And that's basically the whole story. So, did not think it was great, but I had more fun than I thought I would. Other than that, we watched It's What's Inside. Won't get too much into that. It was really, really good.
Nice.
Emma, good rec.
Good rec from Emma. I think that I liked this one more than Bodies, because I think I just really liked where it took the concept that it was operating with. It went really, really hard on it. People have deducted points for it being predictable. I think we need to let things be predictable again. Sometimes the things that you find predictable because you watch a lot of movies or hear a lot of stories are going to blow someone else's mind because it's going to be their first time seeing something like this. So just
like Nina and I called the end of the movie like reveal in the first like 5 minutes. And we were so thrilled when we were right. Because that's
it just
fun.
Felt correct.
It's like a good whodunit where you like actually get to guess early on enough that you get to be like, all right, now let's see what this fuckers doing
And then
the whole
if
time?
you know
And,
what, if you think you know where it's going, you start to try and collect evidence for it, and you start slapping each other through the whole movie, like, yeah, I knew it because of this thing. So, very fun. I would super recommend it. We also watched Daybreakers, which is another 2000s horror action gothic. So fun. I did not expect it to be very good, but it's a genuinely interesting vampire movie. And there were certain things that I was like, this is going to come into play later in an annoying way. And they didn't do the predictable annoying thing with it. There were parts where I was like, well, but if you say that this is how vampires work, then that implies that this other natural consequence will happen. And the movie's like, we know. We did that on purpose, and we are very interested in showing you exactly the entire process of what would happen in that situation.
Ooh.
So, I don't think it's amazing, but I think as far as movies about vampires that came out in the late 2000s, it is good.
Oh, yeah.
Was there incest?
There was not, because it's not a
You
gothic.
said action gothic.
There's a difference between gothic and gothic action.
Yeah.
There's a huge
Just
difference
like there's a difference
there.
between
incest.
action and gothic action. The difference is the incest.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That I
For
will
one way
include
or
that.
another.
I'll include that. So there's like 100% more like genuine sexual misogyny in gothic action, like unironic misogyny.
Sure.
But there's less incest. So you win some, you lose some.
My favorite gothic action movie is Ridley Scott's Gladiator.
Oh my God. I'm going to have to publish this article so you guys all understand what I'm talking about. We also watched Black Swan, which was interesting.
Yeah?
Noah can tag in on this one.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. I think to me, we have watched a lot of movies recently where my thought process has been, this has done what Joker was trying to do, but like really well.
Oh, yeah.
And it all has to do with the fact that the main characters have something that they genuinely want to achieve that society or sexism or just life in general is holding them back from. And I think
Like being
that
an
makes
effective clown.
Yeah. I think that in this case, the problem is that Nina, the main character, is a really good ballerina. And the circumstances of her life are holding her back from being what one specific person wants her to be. Not from being good, because she is good. It's just from being what the one person whose approval she craves wants. She cannot bridge that gap. And she sees other people who have what she wants, and it just drives her to get more and more feral about pursuing it. I really enjoyed it. I think she was a really compelling main character. Okay, I have one more, and it's a big one. It's Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Yes.
Let me tell you.
You heard
Holy
my
shit.
recommendation, and you were like, "We gotta watch this one."
I hated it. I hated it
Nina
so much.
hated
It's
it.
terrible. It's so
It
bad.
was so bad. I did not think a movie could be that.
Nina almost bailed 3 different times.
I almost bailed 3 different times. I almost didn't put it on my gothic action horror list because I just didn't like it. I was like, there is no denying that it fits all of the criteria I have put together. You literally cannot deny it. But I hated it so much.
cyberbullied Nina into it.
The most like criminal CGI action scene I have ever seen in my life was the
horse
combat
one?
with the horses.
Yeah,
my
that was
God.
So
so
fucking
bad.
ridiculous.
It's really bad.
What's so funny
Here's
to
the
me?
thing. I was high enough that it was funny. Nina
Yeah.
was high enough it was so annoyingly
It was
tedious.
so painful.
A little
It's
more
really
or a little
bad.
less, I think Nina could have locked into the enjoyable thing.
So-
but it was just me having a good time.
I have to say something to Dominic Cooper, who was in Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, and also in Mamma Mia, and also in Dracula Untold.
Oh.
Sir, fire your agent, please. You have never played a character I've liked ever, and
Maybe
I
it's-
want you to do
I
better.
don't know if that's his agent's fault.
You think it's him choosing to do these things?
No,
Would
I'm saying
you
maybe
hire
he's
the
just
guy
not
from
good.
Dracula Untold?
He he's the one who delivers my favorite line in Dracula Untold of the men cannot fear what they cannot see. So he just is like he has a very special place in my heart. Anyway, that's the stuff that we watched that I wanted to bring up. There's some other stuff here that I think Noah will get to.
Incredible. I
Hello,
would like to make a
everyone.
comment.
Oh.
Yeah.
When you talked about the one movie, It's What's Inside, and Noah, you said, yeah, Emma, you actually recommended a good movie.
That's not
That
what
is
they
not
said.
what I said. I said great recommendation from Emma.
Yes. That is
As
yes.
if I don't recommend good things all
I
the
think
time.
I
you're
wanted to make it so
projecting.
clear
We're gonna
that this
have
was
to-
not a movie I came across on my own. I wanted to give credit where credit's due.
Jade.
You gabbed the ghoul and we watched it
This-
the next day.
Yes.
This is a new habit of his. Normally, when he watches something that anyone has recommended, he acts
Yeah,
like it was
he
his
takes
idea
forever.
the whole time. And
He's
normally it
doing
takes
his
3
due
years.
diligence.
Yeah.
Jade, you need to cut back in with Noah saying what they said so that we all
Yeah,
can
just bring
hear,
it back real quick.
so that we all
Yeah,
know that
I
Jade,
need
he
the
was
pull
so
that
clip.
genuine.
Bring that back up.
Emma, good rec.
Good rec from Emma.
And as we can see from the clip, I am totally vindicated in everything I've done.
And as you can see in the clip, I'm right, and Noah was extremely rude to me.
Okay, cool. We got both takes, whichever one is right.
All right, Noah,
now
what'd
we
you
just
watch?
need me and Nina both going, I am utterly unsurprised by this.
Yeah, no, this is not surprising to me at all.
Cutaway confessional. I fucking hate Emma.
Second cutaway confessional. Emma recommends good stuff all the time.
Except it's like edited, so it sounds like Noah says that.
Emma always recommends good movies. So, like, you know, it's really nice to see movies that Emma makes me watch because it's a really nice time.
What is
How
going
are you
on?
sounding like two
I was-
different people? What the fuck?
Yeah, that was
okay.
incredible.
Listen, all right. I was yelling a lot yesterday and I had a great
Oh.
time, but I've lost my voice. And then I talked all day today at work.
Oof.
So great for audio listeners. Thankfully, I'm not hosting. Unfortunately for y'all bitches, I'm about to do the 17 to 80 minute section of Noah's movies he watched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Let's get into
watched
it.
28 movies in between recording last and now.
Damn,
I should
that breaks my
clarify,
record.
between podcast prime recording and now, because we did record something else in the middle here,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we didn't talk about it. So
And
I'm gonna
I would like to say, I listened to it.
Aw.
I listened
Oh, you
to the
did?
bonus episode.
Oh my
So-
god,
Hey,
that's
Go
so.
me.
Thank you.
shout out Emma. First things first. I watched Nina. I made
you did.
Nina watch
Weird.
Secondhand Lions, a
Oh, okay.
childhood
That's
favorite
not a
of
horror
mine.
movie. That's why I
I
skipped
don't
it.
Talking about
give
they
a
kill
fuck.
that fucking lion.
They kill that
The
lion,
lion died
man,
of natural causes. Parentheses a heart attack.
from
So
being so excited that she got to kill somebody.
Yeah.
She's like, "Holy shit, I'm a lion, king of the jungle."
Well, also those two guys
Flop.
die in a plane crash. I mean, it's not
Okay,
a
but-
they do. That was
lighthearted movie.
that was pretty out of nowhere. It wasn't.
no,
I saw it. I
um,
totally saw it coming. But
well,
I really like that movie a lot.
Yeah, it's fun.
and then in
um,
return, I'm gonna make you watch Pete's Dragon.
A
I'm so
movie
sorry.
that is distinctly worse than
It
Secondhand
is 100% worse than Secondhand Lions.
All right, to horror movies. I watched The Burning. That shit rocks.
Yo, right?
Holy
Right?
shit. I thought I heard people say it was bad.
I believe
I
I
have this
cautioned you
distinct
against getting
memory.
your hopes up because I think it's got like a handful of scenes that are incredible, and the rest of the movie, as camp slashers go, is just kind of mid.
I think it is a very by the books camp slasher that
Absolutely.
is like,
Doing good with
it's
it, right?
better than your average camp slasher
Yes.
element of Friday the 13th.
Okay.
Certain ones, right?
Sure.
Like,
Like the
the
fifth one.
unfortunate truth is that Friday the 13th 1 and 2 have much better camp parts
Yeah.
and much worse slash parts.
And less camp
This
in another
one-
sense, but
Exactly. I really thought The Burning was great, though.
Mhm.
I think it's crazy how many times those shears went over that guy's head, and then he didn't do what I expected, which was stab in both eyes and then close it.
yeah, right.
That's what I was waiting
I
for.
love that
Um,
scene though. The raft massacre, of course, right?
Oh, the Raft Massacre's
God, I
great.
love the way that shit is shot. Oh.
And the fucking
Oh.
lurking around at the flamethrower.
Mm.
I
Oh yeah.
didn't even think there'd be a flamethrower.
Yeah, right.
That was great.
Right?
Let's see. We watched El Conde,
Ooh,
The Count. I
Dracula?
would like maybe. It's I think this is a blast. It was for me very funny. What I have seen in some comments, and I would like to clarify, I don't know anything about this. All right. From what I understand, this is the equivalent of if they made a movie about Adolf Hitler and were like, Adolf Hitler was actually a vampire and he was cartoonishly evil and an awful person.
It's very Jojo Rabbit coded.
Yes. Which some people take poorly, and some people are like, yeah, fuck him. You know,
Right,
like,
of
so
course.
it's, there is a character reveal at the end of the movie.
Oh my
that
god.
We literally, as it was about to happen,
We're like, you gotta be kidding.
We-
That cannot be who I think it is.
I can't tell you anything else, because if you watch it, I need you to get like your soul destroyed in the same way that we did.
Where is this movie so that
Is
I can
it
watch
Jesus?
It's on Netflix. It's not Jesus, it's actually the devil.
Yeah.
it? From the Bible?
But
From the Bible.
from the Bible. But no, it's on Netflix. I had it as one of my Hooptober horror comedies.
It reminded me of, I think, back when I was in college, my college roommate took me to see, like, I think it was called Stalin is Dead or something
Death
like
of
that.
Stalin,
which was
yeah.
Death of Stalin, which is a black comedy
Yeah.
about the death of Stalin. It
Mhm.
reminded me a lot of that. So
Oh,
if you've
okay.
seen and enjoyed that one, I would say you probably would enjoy this
Well,
one.
now I'm actually looking forward to it because I did enjoy that movie.
I did
Yeah,
too.
I would definitely recommend it. This El Conde is a very good time.
Okay.
Especially for someone like us that is more removed from the situation of the real life person's regime in Chile, you know?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But moving on to my other ghouls and getting away from this topic. I watched all 5 Final Destination movies over the course of a couple days.
Yeah? How'd that treat you?
First one good, second one good, third one fine, fourth one ass, fifth one good.
Yeah? Okay.
Oh.
It's actually they're gonna make a 6th one.
Oh.
And
Yeah, I heard
I
about
think it's a
that.
bit of a shame. Because while I'm excited enough to see a 6th one, the 5 films tie together perfectly in a closed loop, and I appreciate that.
Oh, so it's a sequel and not a remake?
I have no idea.
Okay.
It's kind of like, am I
I don't know what
correct
the 6th one's gonna
in
be.
the thinking it's kind of like Saw, as insofar as like Saws 1 through 7 make a really succinct storyline, and then everything that's come after that has kind of been like, okay, we could have been done, but at
Sure,
this
but
point,
we haven't had anything come out yet.
for Final Destination. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
but that's what I'm saying. I don't know what any new Final Destination looks like, so
That-
that could be the case, or it could be something different. I
Alright.
don't really know. Fun trivia: Final Destination 1 was an X-Files episode.
Yeah.
That got expanded into a feature-length movie because they liked the idea enough.
That makes sense.
The main character comes across
Um,
very Mulder-ish in a lot of scenes when you know that.
Yeah. The Rosary Murders. I would like to recommend anyone who likes a slower detective movie with a lot of Catholicism.
Ooh.
Check out The Rosary Murders.
Okay.
Donald Sutherland.
Ooh.
Really, really good time.
Older?
There
or
is
older?
79, so
Ooh,
or
okay.
87, I mean. So he's like
87. Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah, he's
Okay.
in his like I would say his peak like younger old guy era.
Oh, sure.
You know, and he's not old yet, but he's definitely looks older. But I liked it a lot. I guess it's based on a series of books where like he plays a priest who is also a detective, and people are really mad that the like movie never spawned any sequels because they would have loved watching Catholic Detective.
Yeah. That
But
seems like it
that's
could be
okay.
a real good time.
I watched White Zombie from 1932.
Ooh.
I think it and I Walked with a Zombie from 47, I want to say 43. Both deal with zombies in the sense of they are Haitian zombies.
Right, it's voodoo zombie,
that
not-
situation.
yeah.
And it's all talking about enslaving people after their death.
Uh-huh.
And like it's in White Zombie, the ethics of this are front and center. He's like, because the bad guy's like, yeah, this guy used to be my enemy, and now he's my slave as a zombie for the rest of his life. And it's like, you know,
Yeah.
they're working in like sugar plantations. It's a very interesting like you don't see this type of zombie talk anymore because Romero's zombies have dominated the screen now. Everything is
Right.
locked in on the Romero zombie.
Which Romero
Or the
wanted to
Walking
call
Dead
them
zombie.
ghouls, to his credit. He wasn't trying to... He really wanted to not appropriate the zombie as a concept and was really unhappy when that was the way that it ended up going.
I can believe that. From everything I know about Romero, he seems to be a really,
He
like,
gave a shit.
generally speaking, a very conscious person about stuff like that.
Yeah.
But a nice thing about White Zombie is dial into the black and white movie heyday. Look, there's a big shadow on the wall thing that you just don't see in modern
Oh,
movies
yeah.
because you have too many colors to usually do that.
Yeah. Not a lot
But
of big shadows getting cast in modern movies.
it's harder to do now, yeah. You know, you don't have a big flat beige wall because it looks like shit. But in a black and white movie, a big flat beige wall is just a wall that you can put a huge shadow on, you know? So I would recommend checking it out. It's a little slow. You know, but I think from a film history standpoint, I think it's very cool. We got to see Saw in theaters for the 20th anniversary. Really good time. Saw unrated. Watched it with a few people in the room, had never seen Saw before.
Ooh.
I'm really proud to report that I still don't get the Adam and Lawrence ship. I still don't.
Yeah.
I really went in. I'm like, this time I'm gonna try and pay attention and get it, and I don't. So I'm not like proud to report that. I just think that I am being consistent here, and I still don't get it. But I'm happy for you if you like that ship.
Yeah. Speaking of things that we got to see live, we saw Nosferatu once again with a live accompaniment.
What was his name? Tom Roberts?
Yeah.
So he gets up there. Sorry, you go ahead.
Wow.
Two things that happened since you...
No, do your thing.
So he gets up there and he introduces himself and he's like, I'm Tom Roberts. If you want to know more about me, you can look at my Wikipedia page.
What insane level flex. It was so funny.
And then at some point he said, who here has seen Nosferatu with a live accompaniment? And we were like...
There were like 7 of us in the room. And it was me, Nina Rai, raising our hands in the balcony, no one else in the balcony.
So I think I'm making it like one of my like cinema snob things that if there is an opportunity to catch Nosferatu with a live score, I am going to do my darndest to do it. So
Get a commemorative
It was-
tattoo every time.
I wish.
God.
Once I have
It's Nosferatu doing the big creepy up the stairs shadow and then just a tally mark underneath.
yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, that
Once
works.
I have money again, there's this small theater like a mile away from where we live, like down the street that I walk
Emma,
past
it's a
every
kilometer.
day. No, it's a mile because my phone still uses miles. Thank you. But
God bless
it
America.
it shows some newer movies, but it shows a lot of older movies as well. Like they were showing Shaun of the Dead.
Ooh.
They were showing Young Frankenstein.
Oh, hell yeah.
And like a bunch of other stuff. They had Maxine in 35 millimeter, and I was
Ooh.
like, I wanted to see that, but I don't have money.
Yeah.
And normally they have at least one movie showing 35 millimeter.
That's cool.
But it seems like a cool place, and I wanna check it out and watch some older movies in theaters. I think it'd be
Hell
fun.
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool as hell.
Honestly, there is just something about watching re-releases of movies in theaters that makes them click in a different way than watching at home ever could.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Like seeing Saw on the big screen for the first time, I literally heard a soundtrack I'd never heard before.
Oh, wow.
Because it's a lot of like sub synths that are doing things that I've never heard because I've only ever listened on my TV.
Right. Makes a huge
Crazy,
difference.
you know?
Yeah.
I watched Transylvania 6 5000, which I was like, what the fuck is this name? What the fuck is this name?
Is that where
The whole
Dracula
thing
is like a plumber or...
Nope. Okay, so
Okay.
here's the thing. It is about going to Transylvania because there was a viral video before viral videos sent to this stupid newspaper saying, "Oh my god, it's Frankenstein." And he's like, "You got to go see if there's a Frankenstein here." And the whole title and theme song, cuz this is back when comedies got theme songs.
Oh, yeah.
Is predicated on the idea of Dr. Frankenstein's castle has been converted into a theme resort in Transylvania that is mad science themed.
Oh my god.
It also has Jeff Goldblum. This
Oh my
movie kind of
God.
sucks. I'm not going to lie to you, but it sucks in a really specific, still like fun way. There's people that like give this a half star and say they barely suffered through it for Jeff Goldblum. It is actually very still enjoyable, but it's not good. I think I watched it on Tubi. I don't know. But I know why everyone's here. All right. I know why we're all here. I know everyone's like, Noah, would you shut up and talk about the Human Centipede? I know you watched the Human Centipede. Would you shut the fuck up and talk about the Human
all
Centipede?
three of them.
I watched
in a day?
all three in one day.
Why?
Well, let me tell you. About 4 months ago, I was playing Sea of Thieves with a friend of mine on stream. We were drinking. We were having a good time. Many bad decisions I've made have happened during drinking Sea of Thieves. And
a lot
I
of good
said,
times as well, to be fair.
Human Centipede, somehow this movie got brought up. I legitimately do not know how it got brought up. And this dude in the chat is starting to look up the plot. And he's like, I'm sorry, this. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's the Human Centipede. And he's like, the Human Centipede is a real diegetic movie in the second one. And I'm like, didn't know that. Never seen it. It's the second one and the first one are in universe to the third one. And I'm like, wouldn't know. Never seen it. And I said, I'm never going to watch Human Centipede 2 and 3. To which my friend Dan said, wow, bitch made. And I'm like, hey, fuck you, buddy. You hate horror movies. You're never going to watch it anyway. What do you care? And he's like, yeah, but like, you're not going to watch all three and complete the set? I don't know. Just feels like you're not willing to commit. It's like you don't even care. And I said, thinking this was my easy out, because this is a guy who got a little like nauseous when we watched Hellraiser, right? And I said, Dan, I'll watch all three Human Centipedes if you watch them with me. And I am devastated to tell you, he said, okay, because he would rather die than not commit to the bit.
Yeah,
so Dan and I sat down, starting at 10 in the morning, which got pushed back to 10:30 or so because of things. And we watched all three Human Centipedes. I would like to maintain Human Centipede 1 is fine. This is a movie that was made to be rented out in every video store. The cover, great design. The concept as a little blurb on the back, great. The movie is more fucked up in description than it is on screen.
Right, the first one largely gets by not showing you much of anything, right? This is what I've heard.
It shows you a bit.
Oh, okay.
It shows you a bit. It doesn't, like, scenes happen. There's, like, some, like, surgery scenes in it. I can't remember if they're a bit of a blur to me.
Sure.
But, you know, this type of stuff happens in the movie, but whatever you imagine when someone tells you the plot and things that happen, if someone recounts the movie to you, whatever you're imagining is worse than what is in the movie. Now, Human Centipede 2.
Right.
Whatever I would recount to you, whatever you imagine is not as bad as what is in the movie. It is disgusting. It is awful. It is quite literally everything everyone thought the first one was, coupled with the director looking at the camera and saying, you liked Human Centipede 1? Wow, you're a fat, disgusting loser with a mental problem, aren't you? And the only reason I say this is because there's a super fan of the movie is our focal character, and he is a terrible character by writing. He's like written to be like the most disgusting person you've ever seen in your life. And it sucks. The whole movie sucks. There is one, it's in black and white. There is one scene with color, and it is a scene full of diarrhea. So we make it through this. And I will not lie. For the last 30 minutes, we watched it at 1.5 speed because
just get through
it's
it.
also terribly paced.
What?
I know, right? It sits too long on gross out scenes. It's a shit movie. Fuck you, Tom Six, the director, writer, and producer of The Human Centipede. All right? Human Centipede 3 gives us the big idea of what if we took out most of the gross out humor? or content, I should say, most of the gross out shit, and then replaced it with a lot of misogyny, a lot of racism,
Always strong moves.
and a lot of misogyny and a lot of racism. And it's not, here's the problem. The actors in it are clearly having a good time. It was clearly something they enjoyed doing together, because our two characters are the dude from the first one and the dude from the second one playing new people, right? And it's, you know, they're having fun and it's not nauseating. So when I say it's easier to stomach, I mean physically, it didn't make me want to puke.
Right.
That being said, it's not a good movie. It's also a very bad movie. I don't like it. I'm very angry that I wasted my day watching all 3 Human Centipede movies.
Yeah, that sounds really
There will
bad.
be an article up about my experience on the website soon, hopefully. But oh my god, what a dog shit franchise. And I'm so happy that the director's newest movie is currently in indefinite limbo because he's asking for too much money for his 10-year finished movie. Because he's like, I'm the Human Centipede guy. You should pay me all the money I want. I'm the Human Centipede guy. So yeah, I hope that man never gets to release another movie again. I wish all bad things on Tom Six.
Okay.
Which is frustratingly exactly what he wants from me.
Huh.
I don't care.
So would you say that I have been right this whole time in my quest to just avoid those movies forever?
Yeah, everyone who wanted to avoid these movies forever is correct.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to want to avoid these movies forever. They're
No merit to
legitimately,
them
they're
at
just
all?
not. The first one's fine.
Well, but like, do you feel like your life is better for having had it in it, or
No.
like?
No.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm looking
Not
for.
at
Like,
all.
Is there
This
any
shit is
redeeming
not
factor
art.
whatsoever?
This shit is offensive for the sake of being offensive. The first one, you can make a case for. I read a Forbes article that has a very compelling conversation about the 3 movies represent the 3 stages of the alt-right infiltrating like popular culture and like in general like that. There's some, you can write some good think pieces about these like on a concept front, but there's no reason for you to ever watch them.
Okay.
It's, you know, it's the same issue I have with Family Guy, where the man is like, I think it's a really cool thing when I go and you offend someone, you bring them back in, and then you offend them all at the end.
Right.
Family Guy manages to swing it more often than not. Sure, whatever. I don't give a fuck. The Human Centipede movies are made to offend unapologetically. They are just not enjoyable because they are made to piss people off. And because of that, the only people that like them, unironically like them, are just not good people. And hey, if you're someone who's listening and you like them, just look in the mirror. All right? Maybe I'm not talking to you, but maybe I am. Fuck these movies. Oh my god.
Wow. Okay.
Let's talk about something fun.
Yeah,
Let's
you
talk
got any
about the
better?
thing.
You got any better ghouls to finish on there, or?
I can end on.
Because I've got something that I forgot about actually.
You do your forgotten ghoul.
Okay, I a few days ago went to the theater and watched Venom: The Last Dance.
Yo!
Yes, I did hear this.
Let's go. I'm going with Jackson soon.
I think
And
I'm
you
bowing
loved
out on
it.
this one.
That-
I think I'm taking a step back from this one.
I went in hoping for it not to be good, but fun, right? Because I enjoyed the first one. I enjoyed the second one. I like this take on Venom and Eddie Brock as characters. They're fun and silly together. I love them. But this last one is,
Incredible. Peak
A
cinema.
10 out of 10.
I would call it, well, I've been
Martin
saying,
Scorsese's Venom: The Last Dance.
I have been calling it utter shit.
Oscar worthy.
And, I mean, you know, I don't want to sit here criticizing it. I don't want to talk too much shit about, you know, things that I think it's doing poorly, because I will be here all day. And we've got John Carpenter's The Thing to talk about. So I would rather focus on the things that I feel that it did right. Welcome back to the Casual Obsession Horror Movie Podcast, the horror movie podcast where we talk about horror movies. And Noah is such an inept podcast host that he can't even properly interrupt me while I'm starting this intro, the way that the rest of us interrupt him effortlessly every fucking week.
Whenever you're ready, Jade.
Oh, wait. Emma, that was actually a really good joke.
Oh, that was
Thank
cute.
you.
Oh wow! That was really good. Welcome to the podcast.
That was fucking
Sorry,
good.
I'll
Noah
let Jade
Heathe.
finish
That was
this.
really fucking funny. I am a perfect imitation of your host, Jade, who uses they, she pronouns. With me are
I'm real
three
Noah.
other beings.
Real Noah, who's real, and a human being who uses he, they pronouns. Real, by the
Real.
way.
I'm Nina, and as far as you know, I have always been Nina, and my pronouns are they, them.
I'm a fucking alien from
Holy
space
shit.
named Emma. And I use
the-
they, them pronouns.
No, where's the flamethrower? God.
We were supposed to have it on hand.
It's not
You
igniting.
can't
I don't know what
interrupt
to do.
fucking
fucking
idiots.
flamethrow. I mean, what are we keeping this
As
guy
soon as I
around
get
for?
across lake, that one lake that's between us, I'm coming.
It's so fucking over for you once I get across this stupid lake.
This week we are talking about John Carpenter's The Thing, a movie that we have all been really, that about half of us have really been looking forward to, and the other half have not known to be looking forward to because they hadn't seen it before.
I think that's
I was looking
reductive,
forward to
but
it.
Sure. Offended, but
Well,
okay.
I know that Nina was looking forward to it as well, but since neither of you have seen it before, you don't get to look forward to it.
Oh,
Oh,
ouch.
okay,
I'm fairly
my
sure
bad.
that's how it
And what's
works.
special about this episode besides the fact that we're watching John Carpenter's The Thing?
Is there anything more special than John
Yes.
Carpenter's?
Episode 100.
Yeah,
so
episode
hard.
100. We
Episode
made it.
100.
We
My
can
voice
stop
is
doing the
also peaking,
podcast
so
now.
That
Oh,
was
it's
our goal the
yeah.
whole time from the beginning.
This
we said
is
we
the
want to
end
do
of
The last
100
episode.
episodes, and that's it. After that, we're fucking done. And it,
Sorry we
Yeah.
phoned it in for
Honestly-
like 90 of these bitches.
honestly, it sucks that we didn't manage to get good at podcasting by the time we got to this point. But I'm just happy to be over.
That's true. It's real
Yeah.
sad.
I'm free.
Sad for everyone
I can
else.
finally go home. Hatsune Miku.
What?
Hatsune Miku.
Is Hatsune Miku
Okay.
on this podcast?
She should be.
She's the
Well, in
thing.
any case, John Carpenter's The Thing is a movie about a group of men on the Antarctic Research Station who, one morning, see a helicopter chasing and attempting to kill a dog. And they say, hey, what's going on with this? And they have a little accidental shootout with the Norwegian guys who are yelling things at them whilst trying to kill this dog. Both the Norwegian guys die, and they take the dog in.
And everything is fine.
Yeah, that's it. The movie ends there.
It's a regular old Marley and me.
Yeah, Kurt Russell's there.
He
Yeah.
is.
He wears a ridiculous hat.
He does. I love his
I
ridiculous
cannot
hat.
figure out what he's doing with this fucking hat.
I love him so much.
What is it? Straight to critical reception here?
It's straight to critical reception,
okay.
baby.
So brace yourselves for this critical reception because when this movie came out, the critics fucking hated it. Everyone.
They did.
I
I'm
beat
the
looking at some
shit out of this
stinkers
movie.
right here.
And honestly, it's great because there's just some incorrect reviews here. Sometimes, right? Like it's a matter of opinion.
Yeah.
Other times you're just wrong. And this is where we get into it. IMDb with an 8.2 out of 10, Rotten Tomatoes with an 85%. Now you may be
Good
thinking,
numbers.
wow, those are good numbers.
These are current
Letterboxd with a 4.4 out of 5. These are great numbers. Metacritic 57%.
Oh.
Really low, right?
Ooh.
Now you may be thinking, well, why would people rate it that low?
Right.
How about stop jumping the fucking gun, okay? I'm
Damn,
gonna
sorry.
get to those in a minute cuz first we got Roger Ebert.
Hello, Mr. Ebert.
Mr. Ebert himself
Yeah.
gives The Thing 2.5 out of 4
Oh, okay.
and says as goes. The Thing is a great barf bag movie, all right, but is it any good? I found it disappointing for two reasons. The superficial characterization and the implausible behavior of the scientists on that icy outpost. Characters have never been Carpenter's strong point. He says he likes his movies to create emotions in his audiences, and I guess he'd rather see us jump 6 inches than get involved in the personalities of his characters. This time, though, despite some roughed out typecasting and a few reliable stereotypes, the drunk, the psycho, the hero, he has populated his icy station with people whose primary purpose in life is to get jumped on from behind. The Thing.
Me.
Okay, Wait, hold on. He's
I didn't know I
cooking.
was a John Carpenter character.
Honestly.
The Thing is basically then just a geek show, a gross out movie in which teenagers can dare one another to watch the screen. There's nothing wrong with that. I like being scared, and I was scared by many scenes in The Thing. But it seems clear that Carpenter made his choice early on to concentrate on the special effects and the technology, and to allow the story and on the special effects and the technology. Okay, I think there's a typo in here.
No, I think
Roger.
you're just goofing up on the...
To concentrate on the special effects and the technology, and to allow the story and people to become secondary.
Yep.
I should have
And
finished
he's
the
wrong.
sentence.
Roger Ebert has been wrong many times. And
Now
he's...
this is an important moment for us to remind everyone. Roger Ebert infamously does not care for horror movies. There are some he very much respects. I read his review for The Human Centipede, speaking of, and he talked about it as a film that transcended the star rating system because and now okay, no, here's the thing. Ebert won a Pulitzer Prize for distinguished film criticism. All right. He is a man who put a star rating before his opinions. He's like, does the movie do what it set out to do? XYZ, is it actually a quality, does what it's going to do product? So he could rate something a 3 or a 4 and be like, I fucking hated this shit, but they did exactly what they were supposed to do.
Right.
So that being, while he does not like a lot of horror movies, and in sad admission, a lot of horror movies are not as good as horror fans make them out to be.
Sometimes.
Right? Like, we all know every horror movie gets like a 0.5 to 1 star bump because they're fun. But when you're holding them up to like an official critical consensus conversation kind of thing, a 4 out of 5 for a horror movie isn't always the same as a 4 out of 5 for an intentionally crafted like
I have
drama.
beef with this entire conversation, but I'm going to put it aside.
That's fine. I'm talking about for like people who do critical stuff as a career.
Sure.
I know.
And
I
that's
still have beef with it, but I'm putting it
whatever.
aside.
I don't care. You have a different system.
No, let's not. Just keep going.
That being said, we have some other contemporary reviews of the era.
Yep.
That are really wrong. So for Newsweek, The Thing critic review. There's a big difference between shock effects and suspense, and in sacrificing everything at the altar of gore, Carpenter sabotages the drama.
I'm going to be honest. I would cut that down to the quote, sacrificing everything at the altar of gore, and I would put it on the DVD cover.
Yeah, right? We got this one for the New York Times. The Thing is too phony looking to be disgusting. It qualifies only as instant junk.
Oof. Was that the same review that called it the quintessential moron movie of the 80s?
I don't know. It's possible, but I'm not reading it.
Yeah, what was the New York Times one? Did you read that one?
I just read. Then here we are. John Carpenter's remake of The Thing is a wretched excess. Another great DVD blurb.
Yes.
I don't know. It's one of those things where critics of the time did not like it, but a lot of movie fans now consider it to be one of, if not the all-time horror movie. Twitter Brandon clocks in with, unfortunately, nothing specific, but it is within his top 4 John Carpenter movies, period. It is also up there. I'm not going to remember that. I'm not remembering that. Fair enough. Halloween, Escape from New York, maybe. It was like stuff like Classics. That. But it is also up there as one of his, in general, favorite movies.
Yeah. It's like that.
And that's the way it is. That's a little Run DMC joke.
Reference for you there.
People love Run DMC.
People named my mom.
That one's for you, Linda.
Oh my god.
Anyway, who's going first with the reviews?
Yeah,
with the ratings. Are you invoking host privilege or host privilege?
I am, in fact, going to be invoking host privilege and going first.
Okay.
Because I've got plenty of time to say the things that I'm going to take time saying. This is a 10 for me. I really, really like pretty much every aspect of it. It's doing a ton of shit that I love. It's not doing a whole lot of shit that I hate. Real good. Watch it anytime kind of a movie. I've watched it like 3 times over the last week, just between a few days ago and then today. And I love it. I feel like every time I watch it, my appreciation of it only grows.
Hell yeah.
I'll go. This was really good. Obviously, I think that what frustrates me about these old reviews is, so especially Ebert's, is that next to other horror, I don't understand what he's comparing it to. I guess because other horror movies of the era to me have less character, less like their stereotypes are more pronounced, right? Like this to me feels incredibly nuanced for a horror movie from this era. And I wonder if he, like, obviously nothing to do with Ebert. I just feel like there is more nuance than maybe people at the time were giving it credit for. And that's what really impressed me about it. Same way that Alien did, and oh god, whichever Romero zombie movie we watched.
Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead. I think that these three are definitely my favorite, like, old horror movies. Maybe it's like I love isolation and horror. I love like putting people with strong personalities in dire situations and seeing what they do, and I really loved a lot of the decision making in the thing as far as the characters go. I think the decision process that these characters go through feels so real and reasonable for the stakes that they're facing. Yeah. So I don't know, 10 out of 10.
Hell yeah.
Emma, would you like to go next or should I go next?
You go next.
It's a 10 out of 10. I
Oh my
love The
God.
Thing. I really, really love The Thing. I always forget how much I love it. And it's one of those movies that I love watching it in the cold, personally. This is such a we really should turn the heat up higher winter movie.
It's a snow day
that
kind
just
of movie,
really
yeah.
clicks like that. Yeah. I can't wait to watch this maybe again this year when there's like a foot of snow outside.
Yeah.
I watched it for the first time a few years ago and I was like, wow, this is everything people said it was and then some for me. And I am thrilled that it has lived up to a second viewing. I was really worried that for some reason I wasn't going to like it this time because it's happened before, you know.
Yeah.
But I think The Thing really it holds up. I think it's really funny that people talk about how this is like a story with like no character development. I think that we get locked in early with some of these characters in a way that like makes all of their like decisions and choices make sense because he hits us with really strong like archetypes right from the get-go. You know, I think that stuff really kind of like keeps it dialed in and working in a way that I don't know that the original was able to land, you know? I think that this really works out for me and I had a blast.
Hell yeah.
There you go.
Now, Emma,
Now, here we
naturally I'm terrified now because, of course, older movie, and also this one has some moments where the audio is not quite coming across in the way that I know you like, so...
Yep. And it doubly has it has something going against it in that the entire internet has built this up to be the like mecca horror movie of like, this is the greatest thing of all time.
Yeah, it's like this and The Exorcist and The Shining and
yeah. And so I watched it and I was excited to watch it and I was indeed impressed by it. However, I had fun with it. I was like, for the era, this was incredibly well made. But for me now, I was like, this is a good movie, but there isn't anything like leaping off the page to me. Like the practical effects were really well done for the era. For the era, if I lived in the 80s and saw this movie, I'd probably be like, oh, that was a 10 out of 10. But like watching it as like a new person to it, I was giving it a 8.5 out of 10.
You know what?
It's still very good.
I'm happy with it.
Man, you were saying it like that, and I was just sitting here like,
bracing
holy
myself
shit,
over
Emma
here.
hated this movie.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
Anytime we watch
you gotta lead into
an
this
older
back.
horror movie where I'm like, I know they're terrified, I draw it out.
I have noticed this.
I'm like, I'm gonna make them sweat. But no, 8.5.
Okay.
I thought it was really well done. We were talking about this before we started recording, but I really appreciated that for a movie set like in the 80s, there's not really any racism. There's not like there was the big trope in early horror of like the black characters die first, and like that doesn't happen. Spoiler. And
or does he?
then or does it? Ooh. And it's just a solidly very well done movie. There's like a bunch of like over the years I've seen so many like blog posts and Reddit posts about like, oh my gosh, this small detail in the thing. And so I was looking out for those, and I was like, I think the people who made those blog posts are kind of dumb. And I disagree with these little small detail things they're writing about.
Oh, yeah?
And we'll get into that. There's one major one that I was keeping an eye out for, and we'll talk about that after the spoiler break.
I'm interested.
But I just, overall, very good. I enjoyed it. I had fun. But, like, there wasn't anything that really made me just be, like, incredibly, like, into it. And also, as you mentioned, there were, like, overall, the audio was pretty good.
Oh.
Like, the dialogue sounded really good.
Oh, right, yeah.
A lot of the effects and things sounded good.
I think it's
however,
possible that
there
we were
were
watching different editions of the movie because there are a lot of remasters of the thing that cleaned up a lot of like older fuzziness and stuff like that.
I was mostly referring
but-
to there's certain like creature sounds that just come across a little bit hokey and stuff.
Yeah, there were creature sounds, and like sometimes when it would hit somebody or like something like that, it just sounded incredibly muted, and there was like no heft behind it.
Yeah.
Where if the rest of the movie is at like a 10 volume, whenever the creature was doing something, it was like at a 5 volume. And I was like, that's really weird. But yeah, I watched it on Peacock. Overall, it was good. But yeah, that's what I thought.
Hell yeah.
I'm so excited to talk about this more because to kind of touch on what you have been saying. I think that like I think part of something that makes this movie easier to stomach than some of the old ones, and I think this is maybe the same with Alien too, is that Kurt Russell and Sigourney Weaver have both become like these like titans of media even to this day.
Yeah.
So there's a comfort to seeing Sigourney Weaver or Kurt Russell that kind of makes watching, to me, I don't know, that makes watching the movie a little easier to track because I have like this empathy for them as main characters already. That maybe I wouldn't for other actors. Also, I think this, for me, the 10 out of 10 is a combination of being hyped up that this movie is so good, and also the fact that this movie does do things that personally I specifically really like in horror movies.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
all the time. So I
That's
will
valid.
admit, I think I totally get where Emma's coming from.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I don't think it does anything like wildly, incredibly over the top special. But then again, I don't necessarily think Annihilation does either. So
Yeah. And we're gonna, as we get into this, we're gonna get into all the large number of specific things of mine that the movie does. So it's like, it's definitely getting a large element of that from me as well. But
I'm excited.
What else this movie is doing is it's got some content warnings for us to provide before we get too much further into this. Those content warnings include significant body horror and a lot of dead dogs.
So many dead dogs.
And the dogs are suffering, and you see all of it, and it can be difficult if that kind of thing bothers you.
Mm-hmm. And there's definitely,
True.
I'm gonna say the whodunit element could be kind of like upsetting to people because
Just 'cause
a
the way
large
it is.
portion of this is
The paranoia.
the paranoia of not knowing who is and is not
Yeah.
a thing.
That's the appeal, but also
Yeah.
it might freak you out.
Also, spoilers. That's the basis of the movie.
If you have made it to this, no, that's unfair. But I will say, it is one of those things that has kind of become like a touch point, like Body Snatchers, etc.
Yeah, the
Where
sled
when
is
you're
Rosebud,
talking
but,
about-
like,
I was okay.
Excuse
Before
me?
we get into it, I was watching Jenny Nicholson's video about the Avatar theme park in Disney World, and someone in the comments,
What a great video.
someone in the comments pointed out that if you watch that movie, the Avatar movie from the Na'vi's perspective, it is
oh,
the thing,
shit.
Body Snatchers. Like it literally is, like it literally is a horror movie where these invaders come in and they look just like you, and they're trying to infiltrate your society. And I was like, oh god,
Oh,
that makes it like I already didn't love that movie,
Right.
but I had never even thought about the fact that when we tell those stories from the human perspective of being landed on by extraterrestrial like people,
Yeah.
that's a horror movie. And then when we're telling it and we're like, and then
And we went over there and they were
we
so
just-
mean to us, and all we wanted was their
Yeah, exactly.
unobtainium. God.
And we came in and we infiltrated their society by looking like them when we killed their god for
All
money.
they had was a
and
bunch of
we're
fucking
the good
trees
guys.
anyway. Come on.
Yeah. Anyway, that was just something that I thought of.
Yeah, wow.
But yes.
That is something.
Oh my god. Lawrence Fishburne is trending on Twitter right
Good for
now.
him.
Twending. And I was worried he fucking died. But in reality, the Miami Heat made a statue of Dwayne Wade, and it just looks like if Lawrence Fishburne was a zombie. But it's like he's trending, and I'm like, holy
Oh,
shit.
no.
Did he die while I was at work and I didn't know?
That would have been terrible.
Anyway, I'm going to share it in the chat. So
Yeah,
if you
okay.
hear this now,
Thinking that Lawrence Fishburne is dead is pretty scary.
That is traumatizing. You know what else is scary though?
What?
Maybe this movie.
Maybe.
I don't know though.
We're
I
not
have to
sure.
have someone who's a professional tell me whether or not this movie is scary.
Yeah, I'm not some kind of professional scare teller or something, so I really can't judge something like that.
Luckily, I feel like we have someone who knows how
Someone
to
handy,
rank these
someone
things.
within arm's
Someone
reach.
on the podcast. Hey Emma,
Yes.
could you perhaps provide us with a scary rating?
I think we all know I don't find older movies scary. A lot of the effects and things you can kind of like tell are effects, and while
sure.
the effects in this movie are incredibly well done and they look really cool, I would not define them as scary.
That's so bad.
They're more impressive.
I would
yeah.
define them as like cool as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think back in the day, this was probably pretty scary. But nowadays,
Well, I mean,
I want to say 1, but I'm just gonna say like a 2.
if you want a little context, actually, this movie did come out under a month after the scariest movie of all time, Poltergeist.
Poltergeist?
Oh my god.
Actually, one of the
Oh my
it's
gosh.
a number of the things that contributed toward the movie doing so poorly with critics was kind of the timing of what other movies were in theaters at the same time, which included like Poltergeist and on a sci-fi front, Blade Runner and E.T.
Oh
Oh,
god.
Yeah,
damn.
This movie
there was
fucking-
a lot surrounding
was this
this movie that kind of fucked
Was
it.
this movie dumped to do poorly?
It also, Universal did not. I'm gonna get into this in a few minutes. Universal didn't do a whole
Yep.
lot of good like marketing for it either. What was the scary number there, Emma?
I said I wanted to give it a 1, but I'm gonna give it like a 2.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, knowing that Poltergeist had been out for a month, does that change your perspective at all, or maybe at the time it would even be
No.
like 0.5? All right, so that brings us to spoiler synopsis. Drawing from Wikipedia, and I did previously vet this particular Wikipedia page. It is better than their usual summaries. I may end up filling some spaces in here and there, but also we'll have plenty of time to do that for the rest of the podcast. If we're ready.
Take it away.
In Antarctica, a Norwegian helicopter pursues a sled dog to an American research station. The Americans witness the passenger accidentally blow up the helicopter and himself. Oh wait, okay, we're skipping things already. I'm sorry, God, this Wikipedia is the second sentence already. The whole time that the helicopter is chasing the dog, they are shooting guns at it and tossing grenades down at it. So then they when
Just
they get
another
closer
day
to
at
the
the
American
Norwegian dog hunting factory.
yeah, right. So when they get close enough to the American station, they land the helicopter, and then they accidentally blow up the helicopter with a hand grenade. The pilot fires a rifle and shouts things at the Americans, but they can't understand him because they don't speak Norwegian. Fun fact: if you do understand Norwegian, he explains the plot of the movie, but I'll get to that again later. So he is then shot dead in self-defense by the station commander, who is a man named Gary. The American helicopter pilot, whose name is McCready, he wears a ridiculous hat and he's Kurt Russell, and Dr. Copper
him.
leave to investigate the Norwegian base because they are worried about what is going on over with the Norwegians. Meanwhile, the dog handler guy at the American station has kind of taken the dog in and is trying to help to calm it down and whatnot. Amongst the charred ruins and frozen corpses that they find at the Norwegian station, because the place is wrecked, and the frozen corpses that they're finding are like frozen, having obviously just committed suicide in this kind of thing. And it's some rather underrated parts of the effects work, actually, because when you're making a frozen corpse instead of prosthetics on a person, you can make that thing look really, really, really good because it doesn't need to move. But then they find the burnt corpse of a malformed humanoid. What it looks like is a grouping of bodies that have like melted together or something, but they don't look like the way that they would be if that were the case. So they bundle it up and take it back to the American station, where their biologist, Blair, autopsies the remains and finds what appears to be a normal set of human organs. Clark, the dog handler, eventually kennels the sled dog, and it suddenly transforms into a horrifying monster and absorbs several of the station dogs. This disturbance alerts the team because, of course, dogs are loud. And Childs, who is a mechanic, uses a flamethrower to try to burn the creature's body. Blair autopsies the dog thing and surmises that it is an organism that can perfectly imitate other life forms. Data recovered from the Norwegian base leads the Americans to a large excavation site containing a partially buried alien spacecraft. This is a classic flying saucer style alien spacecraft, which we actually see right before the title drop at the beginning of the movie, but this synopsis did not mention that. Norris, one of the men, estimates that this movie has 12 dudes in it, and it's a lot of names and stuff. We're going to try and use them as much as we can, but there's 12 of these guys, you know? So anyways, Norris estimates based on the ice that it's been buried for over 100,000 years. And there is a smaller, more human-sized dig site located there that correlates to a chunk of ice that they found very clearly excavated at the Norwegian station. Blair grows paranoid after running a computer simulation that indicates that the creature could assimilate all life on Earth in a matter of years if it were to leave the Antarctic continent. The group implements controls to reduce the risk of assimilation. And then it is found that the corpses of the like malformed things that they had found were actually not fully dead because this thing operates at like a cellular level. So the remains of the malformed humanoid that they found out by the Norwegian station assimilate an isolated Bennings, but Windows, another guy, interrupts the process, and MacReady is able to burn the Bennings thing before it is able to assimilate anyone else. The team imprisons Blair in a tool shed after he sabotages all the vehicles, kills the remaining sled dogs, and destroys the radio to prevent escape. He also has a bit of a shootout kind of moment with the rest of the team because, of course, they're trying to stop him from destroying the radio, and he is shooting guns at them and whatnot. Copper, the doctor, suggests testing for infection by comparing the crew's blood against uncontaminated blood that they have in storage for emergency purposes. But then they find that the blood stores have been destroyed, and the men lose faith in Gary's leadership because he was the one guy who had the key to the blood locker, and he, of course, insists that he did not destroy the blood, but he understands that everyone would feel better with someone else in charge, so he actually abdicates peacefully and nominates Norris to be in charge. Norris, massive respect to the man, says immediately that he is not up to it, and passes it to someone else. Childs tries to take charge and is stopped because everyone believes him to be a bit of a hothead. He is stopped actually by the threat of being attacked with a knife by Clark, the dog handler. But that's a little bit less important. MacReady takes command, saying that he is a little bit more even-tempered, which is a lie. He, Windows, and Knowles, who is introduced by riding around on roller skates all the time initially and refusing to turn down Stevie Wonder when asked to. MacReady, Windows, and Knowles find the burnt corpse of Fuchs, a man who I have not yet mentioned, and they surmise that he committed suicide to avoid assimilation. They're kind of guessing this, though. They guess a few other things, and that's just what feels the most likely. Windows returns to the base while MacReady and Knowles investigate MacReady's shack. Windows, it should be noted, is under significant suspicion at this particular moment, and it's a very big thing throughout the movie. You watch all the characters have their own, like, theories on who they think is perhaps John Carpenter's The Thing. The general consensus at this point in the story was that it was Windows. Windows is with MacReady and Knowles, because a couple of other guys refused to go anywhere with Windows. During their return, Knowles abandons MacReady in a snowstorm, believing that he has been assimilated into being John Carpenter's The Thing after finding some of his torn clothes in the shack. The team debates whether or not to allow MacReady back inside, but he breaks in through the window of a storeroom and holds the whole group hostage by threatening to blow them all up with dynamite. During the encounter, Norris appears to suffer a heart attack. As Copper attempts to defibrillate Norris, suddenly his chest transforms into a large mouth and bites off Copper's arms, killing him. This is another one of those huge, huge effects moments. As they're getting ready to go down with the defibrillator paddles, the mouth of his entire torso just opens right up and his arms just fall into him, and he chomps right off him. MacReady incinerates the Norris thing with a flamethrower, but while this is happening, its head detaches and attempts to escape on a pair of legs that it just grows. And by pair, I mean like a crab, a lot of legs. Before getting burnt to death in the hallway, once again by MacReady, who then hypothesizes from this experience that the Norris thing demonstrated that every part of the thing is an individual life form with its own survival instinct. He proposes testing blood samples from each survivor with a heated piece of wire, and with the idea generally being that if you stick a hot thing toward the thing blood, it will run away, try to escape getting burnt, whereas regular blood will not do that.
The fact that this works,
Honestly, and
I was expecting the plot twist to be that just
it just doesn't
fucking work.
And it feels as though the movie is treating it that way, right? Because when he finally gets
Yeah.
a positive, it hits at a moment that like you're not expecting a jump to happen.
You're
It's
starting to
unremarked on.
wonder because
Yeah.
specifically because like it hasn't worked, like it fizzled out
Yeah.
on a couple people that you were really supposed to be suspicious
Mhm.
of, and you're like, now wait a minute, maybe we've drawn a foregone conclusion here and this isn't how it works, and then it does work that way, and by that point you were like they've done a really good job of making you think maybe this
Yeah.
isn't how this works.
So when we get a positive, it's Palmer, who actually a couple scenes before was one of the guys, was the main guy, you might say, actually, that was refusing to go do things with Windows. Palmer is the one who does not pass the test. His blood recoils from the heat, and now that he is exposed, the Palmer thing transforms, breaks free of its bonds, because they had everyone just like tied to a couch for this until they were tested. He breaks free and his head like splits open in half into just a giant mouth like down the middle, chomps down and infects Windows, forcing MacReady to burn both of them. Childs is then left on guard while the others go to test Blair, because we get another tense little scene after that where they're doing the last couple of tests, and after it is found that everyone is clean, they're all very like impatient about getting untied real quickly, which is something, just a touch that I really like. I like the way that these guys stay pissed with each other all the time.
Can't overstate how funny the scene is.
Oh, absolutely.
There's like some really great cuts.
There are some really
Between them
great
going,
comedic cuts.
Yeah. Now get me the hell out of this chair. And then suddenly he's there with a fucking gun.
He's holding the flamethrower,
watching
yeah.
everyone else.
And then it's the last guy, and he's like, I understand you've all been through a lot lately, but when you can find the time, I would like to spend the rest of this winter not tied to this fucking couch.
How can you say that they don't have personality,
Honestly,
Mr. Ebert?
they
I'll
do.
fight
They
you.
really do. And like,
Roger Ebert walked out in the middle to go to the bathroom and missed the entire middle
missed
of the movie.
everything. Yeah. Okay, so Childs is then left on guard in the main building while the others go out to the tool shed to test Blair, who we've seen very minimally through the rest of the movie. Periodically somebody checks on him to see if he's like seen a particular person, and initially he's like, listen, you gotta watch out for this guy, you gotta watch out for that guy, and you gotta watch close, and like he's very paranoid, and this is immediately after the whole destroying the radio thing, right? But then the next time that MacReady goes out to check on him, he finds that there is a tied noose just hanging from the ceiling, and Blair is like, I'm feeling way better, and I'd really like to just go back inside. I don't want to stay out here anymore. Come on. I'm better now. I'm good. Come on. And of course, MacReady doesn't listen to this because MacReady is paranoid as all shit. But that's like, all the way back in the middle before they find Fuchs. So at this point, they go to finally test him and find out for sure, but they find that he has escaped from the tool shed. He dug a tunnel down through the bottom of it and has been using components of other vehicles to assemble what appears to be a small flying saucer, which then they destroy, of course. They still haven't found him yet. On their return to the main building, Childs is missing, and their power generator has been destroyed, and like destroyed. Like this thing is gone, leaving them without power, without heat. McCready speculates that with no escape left, the thing intends to return to hibernation until a rescue team arrives. McCready, Gary, and Knowles agree that the thing cannot be allowed to escape, so they start setting explosives to destroy the station. But then the Blair thing kills Gary, and Knowles disappears. The Blair thing transforms into an enormous creature and breaks the detonator, but then McCready triggers the explosives with a stick of dynamite, destroying the entire ass station. McCready sits down by the burning remains, seemingly just kind of waiting to die, when Childs returns, claiming that he went looking for Blair, who he thought he saw outside somewhere, and then got lost in the storm. They are both exhausted and slowly freezing to death. They kind of the Wikipedia synopsis here says they acknowledge the futility of their distrust and share a bottle of scotch, which is just the same like bottle of J&B that McCready has been slugging directly out of for the entire length of the movie. I feel like the conversation they have is a little bit deeper than acknowledging the futility of their distrust, though. It feels like it's an awful lot more... I mean, McCready straight up says it. He says if either of us has any surprises left for the other, we're not really in much shape to do anything about it. And it feels more to me like it's just fatalism on his part. It's the mutually assured destruction. It's if you do anything, I'm going to do the same thing that you do if I do anything. So we're just going to sit here and wait to freeze to death either way, aren't we?
Well, but what other choice do they have?
But what other choice do they have? They've got no trust left for anything.
And I love it so much because it doesn't matter. It's either way, it's so interesting whether or not Childs is the thing, because I mean, he could be.
Yeah, I was actually just about to say,
so
it doesn't matter if either of them could be infected. And it doesn't matter to me because that moment is both of them looking at each other like,
Well, it's equally interesting if one or the other of them is the thing, or if both of them are just men who have not trusted each other this entire time and are even now in death, both not willing to trust each other even now, and also trusting each other as much as they possibly can in this moment in sharing that like drink, where it's like there's so much respect there. It's like, what's gay or being gay or whatever the fuck these two have going on.
Yeah, and it's essentially...
I really loved that ending.
A lot of people have analyzed this scene for, minute little clues and whatnot, indicating, who might or might not be the thing. There's people who point out that, intentionally the lighting is different on people who are the thing versus people who are not when it's a known thing in the movie, right? The lighting on the eyes is a little bit brighter and more specific when they're not the thing, and people have looked at the lighting on Child's face and they're like, ooh, he's not, his eyes aren't illuminated properly or whatever, or you can see McCready's breath in the air, but you can't see Child's breath in the air, and that's been said is not intentional. It was just a production thing. It's just a fluke. Kurt Russell...
fluke. Fuchs also, you see his breath.
Yeah,
and he
it's
is
not
half transformed. So
Kurt Russell specifically has said that if you analyze that scene looking for clues as to who is the thing, you have entirely missed the point of the scene, which I think is essentially the same stuff that we've just been saying here, right?
Yeah.
John Carpenter, frustratingly, has said he knows exactly who the thing is and he will never tell you.
Well, and from what
It's
I
classic
understand,
John.
when he's one of those people that when asked these questions and he changes his answers to piss people off.
Yeah, he'd do that. He would do that.
I want that energy, and then the like just complete hatred for his fans that Harlan Ellison, author of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, had towards his fans. I want that. I want to be confusing and rude. I am so sick of being nice. So I just need to be possessed by an 80s sci-fi creator. Don't I just? But yeah, no, I think that's the energy that needs to be had with a movie like this, because it's not interesting if we have an answer. The whole point of this is to like ponder.
It's put there the way that it is on purpose.
This is a great time for me to complain about Reddit theories.
I was so
and
hoping
that
you would
Yes.
say this.
So, like 2 or 3 months ago, I saw a post on Reddit where somebody was like, "Oh, I figured out, or I noticed that in the movie John Carpenter's The Thing from 19 whatever, what year was it?
82.
82.
82. That's what I thought. In John Carpenter's The Thing, 1982, you can tell who the Thing is because their eyes don't shine light. And meaning like the little light that you see in your eyes or that you can see in characters' eyes, like the reflection, like the Thing's eyes don't do that. And so I was keeping an eye out for that throughout the whole movie because I was like, this will help me keep track of who the Thing is. And then I'm like constantly every single fucking character in like any scene like constantly just doesn't have light shine in their eyes. I'm like, this is a bullshit Reddit theory.
It is.
But then in the comments, people were like, "Oh my gosh, this is like such a good find." Blah, blah,
Yeah, that's
blah, blah.
Redditors
I'm
for
like,
you.
this is fucking stupid.
Yeah, the movie is very specifically put together to make it impossible for you to track who is actually the Thing, and that's a thing that's
Literally,
done
like-
very on purpose. In the scene early on with the dog, which just by the way, the dog Jed is an incredible actor. Oh my god,
He
and
is.
we'll get
He's
to that
doing
a
in a
great
minute.
job.
But there's that one
He's a good
scene where the
boy.
dog walks into a room with an unseen person. You see their like silhouette cast on the wall, and they react to the presence of the dog, and then it like fades to black and the next scene starts. That silhouette is even like the shadow of a stagehand who is never seen on screen because they didn't want the silhouette to actually match a person who's in the movie, specifically to
Yeah.
make it impossible to tell who's the Thing.
You spend so much time without characters. You spend long chunks of time without every single one of them. So it's impossible to know. It literally is impossible to know, and that's the fucking fun part of the movie. It's kind of like because a lot of us, as we said, have watched It's What's Inside, and there are some kind of things that are done similarly in that. But they made the decision to do the opposite thing, where they make it very, very fucking clear who's who at what point, so that you are never confused about what's going on there. And it leads to a different kind of suspense and a different kind of theorizing and interpersonal dynamic. So it's like, I think that it's really annoying that people call one predictable and the other they're trying to dissect for all of these hints and clues, and it's like, can you just accept a piece of art for what it is, and instead of looking for clues, maybe start to think to yourself the implications. It's like, not to Dennis Reynolds this, but like,
Because of the implication.
but like, the implications are what's interesting about thinking about who might be the Thing at any given point. Because if you're watching a scene and you start to think, well, if so-and-so is the Thing in this scene, what does that mean for how he's acting around everyone else?
Right.
Instead of reverse engineering this person's acting weird, they must be the Thing, be like, if this person is the Thing, then what does that mean about how they're acting here? And then, even more interestingly, if this person is the Thing, what does that mean about what the Thing is? Like,
how good
what
is it
is
at
it that-
imitating a person? At imitating this
why is it
person?
imitating them? Why does it want to imitate them? Why is it making the decision to cast suspicion, to put itself alone or not put itself alone with someone? Like,
Yeah.
how far ahead, how many steps ahead can this thing plan? But yeah.
Or does it? Because it could
Or
be
does
that
it?
when, like, you know, as an example, Palmer casts more suspicion on Windows, who doesn't get turned until later, and, like, tests negative when they do the hot wire thing and everything. Was Palmer the Thing when he said that thing about not wanting to go anywhere with Windows? Was he going along with group suspicion because that's just what you do when you're trying to blend in as a shapeshifter? Or was that just Palmer actually still being Palmer and he hadn't turned yet? We don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's also characters who just act weird.
This is also very
Clark,
true.
the dog handler guy,
Yeah.
kind of abruptly disappeared from the synopsis.
He is.
He's just a weird dude, right? He just acts weird. It's very clear he's in Antarctica because he's not a big fan of people. He likes dogs and he doesn't seem to get along super well with the rest of the team. He is always acting weird right from the beginning, and everyone suspects him really hard of being the thing. And then when McCready is holding everyone at gunpoint to do the blood tests, Clark tries to like make a break for it and take McCready down. McCready shoots him right in the head, and then they test his blood, and it turns out he was human the whole time.
Oh, it's so good.
And the whole time,
That
you,
was
the
such a
viewer,
good
have been
moment.
convinced that, of course, he was alone with the dog for so long, and he's been acting weird for the whole goddamn movie, and everyone knows he's the thing, right? No. He's just a weird guy who likes dogs and doesn't like people. That's it. A person can have so much difference from another person that an alien can be pretending to be people. And you might think that a person is the alien instead, because if the alien does a good enough job, people are just weird sometimes.
This is Noah and I were talking about this in regards to I think who was locked in the shed
Blair.
for a lot of it. Blair. In regards to whether or not when Blair was the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because the sabotage could be multiple things.
I have a really specific idea of the timeline on this, actually.
I'm so excited because my thought process is when he destroyed everything, he as a person, human, had already been having the thought process of, I need to stop this thing spread no matter what. But it's also possible that that was a guise to allow himself to destroy things as the thing, and he specifically left parts intact that he, knowing how to build a spaceship, could use to build a spaceship. So maybe it's like a trajectory thing where the thing's like, I see how this person has already been acting, and that gives me the great opportunity to destroy things in a way that disables my enemy while allowing me to still escape in the future, you know? But anyway, I'd love to hear your timeline because Blair is the one that is the most interesting to me because his reaction was so understandable, understandably freaked out early on. I empathized with him really hard in that moment of the computer spitting out predictions and him just immediately catastrophizing versus Mac's very steely, like, confrontation with the same thing where I told Noah when Blair had those predictions, I was like, that'd be it for me. I'd be out. I would not even attempt. I would not even attempt to go further. Everything that Mac does is more than I would do just from the get-go. But
Mac is really just buckling down, gritting his teeth, and surviving for most of the movie, as far as I can read him.
That's why he's a great protagonist, is because I think he knows... Because Ripley wants to live and is going to live. I think that at some point Mac fully knows that they're not making it out of this.
Mac, I mean, from the first scene that we see with him, we find that mutually assured destruction is his preferred ending for a conflict. He's just like, well, if I can't win, we're both losing.
He's a little dumb. He has a stupid hat. And I love
our introduction to him is he's playing chess against a computer that is that big, but it only plays chess because it's 1982. And as soon as it beats him and there's nothing he can do, he pours whiskey into it to destroy it because he would rather never play chess against this thing again than actually lose. Right? And that kind of is just the way that he approaches everything. It's like, well, if I can't win, neither can you. In terms of Blair's timeline, though, I think when they go to lock him in the shed and he says, watch Clark and watch him close, that is the last thing that we hear from the real Blair. And that after that, off screen, sometime between him tying that noose and not using it is when he turns fully. I don't know if the change...
I actually think that's the most interesting read of his character.
Yeah, I don't know how gradually the change happens in your mind, but I have to assume from what we see with how quick the turnaround is on Fuchs that it's pretty quick. So I think he started tying that noose the moment he realized that it was changing him and then made the decision not to use it the moment that it was in control. However quick that brief little timeline is, but I think him destroying the radio and sabotaging the vehicles was a 100% sane thinking Blair thing, and he was trying to save the rest of the world.
Because it doesn't make any sense to me for the thing to force the isolation hand, especially in the detailed ways. Like, I think there's things that the thing will learn to do, but I don't think it would prioritize tanking every vehicle into place like that. Exactly.
Now,
Exactly.
I can't help
No,
but this has been a good little tangent here, but I can't help but notice we've only heard one stupid Reddit theory.
Oh yeah, where's our second stupid Reddit theory?
I didn't have.
Oh, I thought
didn't
you had a
remember
bunch.
anymore.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
I've seen a bunch over the
Right.
years, but that was the most recent one, and that was the one that I actively
Okay.
remembered.
I've heard,
And one
while I
that
was
we had
watching.
also talked about, so that makes sense.
so
yeah.
I have heard another one, and this isn't from Reddit, but this is just that I have heard. That when someone is the thing, you
Hey,
never see them.
Things can be stupid Reddit theories without Reddit.
You know,
I'm just gonna
honestly,
Yeah, Reddit is a state of mind.
Yeah, Reddit transcends Reddit, doesn't it?
It really does.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately
Wherever
for
there is
everyone.
Joe Rogan. Anyway, so one that I have heard is that when someone is John Carpenter's The Thing, they don't eat food.
Ugh.
And that the part in the ending scene, of course, the scene that we want to analyze, right? When Childs takes a slug of that bottle of whiskey, that is proof that he is human because John Carpenter's The Thing doesn't eat human food. Conversely, I've got a competing theory for that scene and for that bottle, where other people say, due to everything that happens in the preceding scenes, we've got McCready throwing like Molotovs everywhere to try and burn the whole place. That bottle was filled with like gas or kerosene or something, and he hands it to Childs to test whether he's John Carpenter's The Thing. And when he takes a slug of it and acts like it's normal, that's because he's John Carpenter's The Thing trying to act like a person drinking human beverage. Haha.
Okay, I need to say
Interesting,
something.
interesting.
Yes,
It's
McCready was
really-
about to take a slug from that bottle when Childs walked up. However,
Yes. I think, having watched Blade Runner and this movie in the same year,
much like people who were
I-
seeing both of them in theaters in 1982.
exactly, I think people need to shut the fuck up
Yeah.
about their theories.
Yeah.
It's this
You know
is
what
like
my
the
theory
more
is?
Oh, I
that
need to
we
hear
bring
your
up
theory.
new
Shut the fuck up, Emma. People need to
Nina,
shut
you
the fuck
finish.
up.
the more the people that we are hearing new theories, the more I'm having flashbacks to the conversation about the replicant thing. And I'm like, it pissed me off when we were talking about replicants for the same reason, where I'm like, can we just think about how interesting the story is, whether or not, with the question hanging over us? Why
Yeah.
do we need to have a real answer?
If the movie intended us to have an answer, it perhaps would have given us one.
Yeah. Emma, what were you going to say?
I think that they have already found a test that works for how to determine if somebody is the thing. There is fire all around them at the end of the movie. They're both sitting there being like, "Are you the thing? Are you the thing?" And when they could easily just be like, "Here, I'm gonna burn myself just a little bit."
God, can you
And that will
imagine
prove
the
I'm not the thing,
goofiness?
and that we're safe for
Can you
each
imagine
other.
the goofiness of a scene where they're both just like playing chicken with their hands over a flame? Like,
Yeah,
love
I
that.
don't think this should actually be a scene in the
No,
movie,
no.
but I think
No,
like
yeah.
that conflict of them being suspicious of each other is very easily
yeah, if you're
solved,
trying to get a quick
And I
answer.
think
in a
that-
real world scenario.
And I think that speaks to the pride that both men have, which is something I love about both of them. That, yeah, they could easily fucking prove it if they weren't so mad at each other through the whole movie. And
That's
the
Yeah.
true.
and the fact that they don't want to have to prove it to each other from the get-go. They're the same, and I like that there's no character development. I like that they're the same angry, prideful men at the end
Yeah.
there that they are early on, that they still don't want to make any concessions. And that's the indomitable human spirit or whatever, where it's like, yeah, I'm dying, but I'm mad at this guy, and so we're gonna die either way. What does it matter who may or may not be the thing to them?
Well, they,
they
which
did
is why all
the
that
whole-
stuff to stop the thing from being frozen and then recovered later on. So I feel
Yeah.
like it'd be important to both of them to make sure that the thing is actually
Right.
dead.
Potentially.
But also the whole
Or not.
the whole thing.
But they do hate each other a
Yeah.
lot.
They do hate each other a
it
lot.
ties so hard into the movie's kind of like just on-running theme of you could call it male frailty. You could call it just a facet of toxic masculinity, right? Like we've got this just group of dudes who, from the beginning of the movie, the first introduction we get of any of them, what's the main thing that's getting emphasized over and over? The place is tense. These guys are not getting along great, and the winter has only just started. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the immediate conversation that they have. I love the dynamic when they're talking about the Norwegians,
Yeah.
where they're like, oh man, that's like, it's only been this long. That's not enough to start losing your mind. And you can tell that someone who is more tired than the person saying that sentence is like, I don't know,
immediately
man.
Knowles is like, well, what are you talking about? Come on, a couple of days is long enough. 5 minutes is long enough. Palmer was like this when he even got here. Come on. Like, and Palmer takes it like a joke, but also you can tell he's kind of like agreeing.
I love how different this group is from the alien group. Partially
Equally
because
believable
there's
as coworkers.
I think what's interesting is, especially with the quote unquote gender blindness of Alien, you can read Alien as avoiding this kind of toxic masculinity by the men uniting against Ripley as a woman. Because that's the easiest thing to do. You could have all of these like masculine like posturing bumping up against each other, but what ends up happening instead is they've all decided the woman's a bitch, and they can all unite together on that front and bitch about that together. Versus with the Thing, they similarly treat Mac that way sometimes. Some people do, as being like, come on, man. But they all have this like warring respect and disrespect for each other, where they all are like looking at what the other person thinks of the person that they might make the leader or not. There's this like high school drama like clique status for all of these men, where they're all just kind of constantly judging where everyone else thinks the person they're talking about is on the totem pole. And if they misjudge that, like when Mac gets cut loose in the storm, you can tell that the snap judgment that was made there is not accepted as quickly as was it Childs that cut him?
It was Knowles.
It was Knowles. It's not accepted as quickly as Knowles kind of hoped it would be. Like, everyone does not necessarily side with him. They are suspicious of him because they like Mac
and that
better,
suspicion only really gets redirected when Windows starts trying to participate in the conversation, and suddenly it's all, well, where were you actually? Because you went out with the two of them and then you came back by yourself. What's the deal with that?
It's very Lord of the Flies in a much more realistic way, where it's like the tensions and the power dynamics of like a scientific but still like very militaristic like group, where you have a leader, but then that leader's not trustworthy. So then who do we pick? I guess the guy that we all dislike the least for the most part. You know, you have logic, but at the end of the day, it really does come down to vibes for a lot of these dudes, which is so interesting. I don't know. I love their dynamics. I love Alien's dynamics as well, but it feels a lot more simple because of the way that the story is trying to make you think John Hurt's the main character until he isn't. That I think that simplifies the power dynamics in Alien a little more, versus in The Thing. Mac's the main character, but he's also not. I think they do an ensemble cast better in The Thing.
Yeah.
I love Max so much, but everyone has their own shit.
Yeah, the way that the group interacts in every scene. Like, every scene, whoever is in the scene, everyone's, like, actually participating. It's never, like, McCready enters and now it is his scene. The conversation is focused on him and whoever he is talking to at the time. It's never like that. Everyone is talking to everyone the whole time.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
I really enjoyed that.
And McCready just kind of, like, emerges as the main character because
he happens to make it the farthest. But I think everyone has an equal amount of personality, which is, I guess, why I understand Ebert being like, oh my god, no one has any personality. And it's like, no, I think that it's just a different, it's almost like, it feels almost like an ensemble cast in a play, like in the play version of Clue, or similar, where we're seeing like a static set, so we're not cutting. People are running in groups on stage, and there's no camera angles to tell us which character is the focal character of the scene. You have to kind of interpret that as you're watching the play. So that kind of is what this reminds me of, is the whole group runs onto screen. The angles are not choosing someone to focus on. The dialogue is not choosing someone to focus on. Everyone is the main character in those scenes. I really liked that because it made me paranoid and sympathizing with and all of these things for everyone all the time, including The Thing itself. I found it a really like dynamic villain compared to something like Pennywise, for instance, where it's like, I just think its motivation is interesting to me, because if you put yourself in its position, where it's like you've been unfrozen and your kind of assumed instinct is to take over this civilization or this population, and you have a certain level of sentience and intelligence, like, I think it's really interesting to see kind of its survival instincts, and how there's a Tumblr post that I put in the chat that's like, the thing is so funny because it's like presumably manipulative and intelligent enough to do these things, but it also is like so jumpy that the moment anyone catches it, it explodes into 5 billion meat parts.
Yeah.
And I love that as a reaction, because the moment that it's about to be found out, it loses its shit and starts just going scorched earth and biting off people's arms and shit. And I really love that, as it's a really believable like alien. It's not just a stalker. It's not just doing this thing or that. It has a consistency to its freakouts, and I loved that.
Yeah. The one thing, there's a lot of this thought with any alien media, is a lot of times the aliens are just shown as like a lot like monsters or animalistic and things. I'm like, if that's the case, how they build spaceship that travels like as far as Earth?
It's very interesting, right?
I like the thought that maybe the monster like took this from a different alien society. And like made it to Earth like via their technology accidentally.
I like that.
But it is something I always wonder. Something else I always wondered was, there are a lot of times in this movie where I was like, especially with the practical effects and all of like the tethers and things flailing about and like grabbing things and all of this shit, I'm like, how'd they do that?
I think a lot of it is plastic tubing and compressed air.
It's a lot.
Like for the flailing and shit.
It's a lot of things. Some of them are directly controlled puppets. Some of them are
like an RC
mechanized.
car.
Some are there is Rob Bottin is credited with all the creature effects. There is actually a Stan Winston piece in this movie for those of us fans who know about Stan Winston. Because Rob Bottin was at the age of like fucking 23, I think, working himself into a state of like actual medical exhaustion, making all these things. And also probably, you know, inhaling an awful lot of toxic fumes because he was melting an awful lot of plastic, and he laughs about how terrible all of that probably was for him and stuff. He lived on the Universal lot full time for over a year, just working on the effects for this movie every single day. He claims that for a year and 5 weeks, there was not a single day that he wasn't working on this. And he literally just like basically never left the Universal lot that whole time.
That's insane.
He was really, really dedicated because he was really excited to be able to work on this this project, because it was so like ambitious the way that Carpenter wanted to do it. The way that the thing, I'm transitioning into a trivia section now. So the way that the thing kind of like never displays a true form, the way that your traditional shapeshifter characters do, the way that the way that the monster in the original adaptation of this story, The Thing from Another World, was just kind of a guy with some makeup or a rubber suit or whatever. The way that it never has a true form that gets shown in this movie is something that a couple of critics took issue with, which I think is a silly criticism when they say it, because the way that they say it, it's just like, well, that's you're thinking weird about this, because like to me, if you're gonna have a shapeshifter character and never show anything that's even like implied to be its true form, then it's kind of like, well, this thing is scarier now, because what we're seeing is everything else that it has been, that it can think to be, and we don't get anything like, I don't know, real from it, you might say.
Yeah. I love when we don't see like a horror monster fully.
I like that way more.
I feel like people always want to reveal it, and then it
Ridley
always
Scott.
That was
looks
the
worse
biggest
than you imagine.
biggest fucking bummer of Quiet Place.
Yeah.
Why?
He just let you look at all that.
Why did you show me that thing? Put it away. It was so much scarier before you showed me disco ball flesh head. What the fuck? But I liked watching it kind of cycle through different things that
Yeah.
it knew how to be.
And I love specifically that we're always seeing it in like transitional phases of the transformation.
I love when it drops when it decides to drop its pretenses with the dogs is when it's put in with the other dogs and there are no more humans around. And it's like so clearly, again, I'm just fascinated by how intelligent it might be.
Between humans and dogs. He knows the dog is an effective and expedient thing to disguise himself as because he'll be underestimated.
I like a lot of the characterization, and I find that way more interesting than seeing it at any point. Because I've watched a lot of movies that have like given it up as far as seeing the creature. So like the fucking M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, Ishana. She showed her movie creature at the end and I hated it. It looked really bad. And I was like, I think it's more interesting, especially with the type of story that she was telling, if we don't see what this kind of creature looks like, especially when it's something that has a lot of interpretations in popular folklore and culture. So it's like, I have what in my head, it's kind of, it's like with the fucking underwater monsters, where I'm like, that's, when you tell me deep sea monsters, I have all of these really cool ideas of what a deep sea horror monster could look like. And then you show me Slenderman, and I'm like, dude, come on. So I really appreciate that with The Thing, you have all of these ideas. I think this with this is a simultaneous like pro and con of VHS Beyond. Is everyone has their own idea of what an alien kind of looks like, and some people with VHS Beyond did some really interesting things. Other people did some of the most boring alien design I have seen in a long time, and nonsensical at that. And so it's like and so it's like with The Thing,
preach,
when we have the when it's like with The Thing, when we have this opportunity to
go apeshit.
Either land or flop with a big reveal, the decision to not do that is the smartest fucking decision possible, because you have a great creature design already. Why do we have to, versus with Alien, where it feels like we're built around the visuals and aesthetics of this alien culture, and we have an alien design that works with that already. It's like, I don't see an issue with seeing the xenomorph as much as we do, because I have an idea of what she looks like already when I'm seeing the ship, and because the ship is very much the xenomorph's culture, so when I see her, I'm like, yeah, totally. But The Thing, we don't know. We don't know what he comes from, so when we should never see it, because we don't know what it fits into. Anything would be wrong because we don't have any context.
Which,
do you think The Thing would be as iconic of a movie if at the end we see it turn back into its original shape as it's burning, and it's just a little gray alien?
That would be M. Night Shyamalan's The Thing, right there.
I would hate that so much. So anyways, this brings me back to my original point bringing this up. The fact that The Thing is presented in the way that it is was Rob Bottin's idea, because he was given the idea that it was a shapeshifter creature, and he was like, oh yeah, okay, and it's from space and stuff, right? So it's been lots of crazy shit that we probably wouldn't even recognize, and it probably doesn't have any of the ideas that we would deem normal about what Earth life forms are supposed to look like. It probably has a weird idea of like symmetry and shit even, which is why at one point you see it kind of extending out that like flower looking thing that's made out of dog tongues and has like teeth on the inside and whatnot. It's just making shit out of dog parts at that point, right? This is Rob Bottin's idea. He was given the idea for the shapeshifter thing, and he ran with it in this direction and just storyboarded out the transformation sequences and stuff to pitch them to John Carpenter and everyone else that he would have to convince. And everyone looked at his storyboarded ideas and they said, whoa, that's sick. You got any idea how to do that stuff? And he said, no. And then he figured it out.
Yeah. I love when Oh,
There
sorry, go
is
ahead.
actually, I'm about to say a thing that I think you specifically will really, really be
I'm so
interested in.
excited.
So the way that specifically, I'm gonna tag the head separation sequence when Norris's head comes off while his body burns. Right, the way that the flesh of his neck just kind of stretches and snaps and stuff. You see a lot of that kind of thing in the way that the thing moves and splits apart as it transforms and stuff. Right. The way that all of that happens was they had a lot of experimentation to get there, of course, and it's because they were working backwards from the result that they wanted, which was for it to look like that specifically. And the reason they wanted it to look like that specifically is that Rob Bottin is and was a comic book fan, and he loved seeing in comic books when somebody would be getting, like, you know, their body ripped apart or something, the way that you see just kind of strands
There's
and
the
goo
threads.
and whatnot running between things, and you look at it and you go, what is that? I don't fucking know. That was what he wanted, was that feeling where it stretches and splits and you're just like, well, what is that? Ugh.
It's some of the most gut-wrenching gore that I have ever seen has been in comics because first of all, they use page turning so effectively, and secondly, one thing that stands out to me and I'm never going to recover from, that like genuinely traumatized me, is there in the Ultimate Comics run, there is a panel, there's a sequence where the Blob eats Wasp, and like, he's a human, he's just a guy, he's not a monster, he's just the Blob, and she is not smaller than she should be necessarily. She's not much smaller. And he just takes a full bite out of her midsection, and it's like gooey and gross and gory, and then obviously Ant-Man Hank Pym gets pissed off and gets really big so that he's relatively the same size that Blob was to his wife, and he does the same fucking thing to Blob. And that sequence of events traumatized the shit out of me because of the stretchy, gooey, like, gore that's how you think that your body will fall apart. That's how you feel it when you imagine it. It's not how bodies really work.
You're not made out of goo inside. You're made out of strings mostly.
So seeing the interpretation of real life feelings and emotions to comic art, and then having someone resonate with the comic art and then take that and reinterpret it into something physical is so crazy.
And especially in a context where it's like, well, yeah, that's not supposed to look like human insides. It's weird alien shit, actually. Sometimes it's weird colors just to make it even weirder, and also to dodge a worse rating from the MPAA, which is a trick that Sam Raimi would go on to use in Evil Dead 2.
That makes sense. It's a trick a lot of people use, and I love it every time. I love weird colors.
Especially in a situation like this, where it's just like, well, I mean, yeah, it would be weird colors inside, wouldn't it?
I think that specifically, though, as far as like things melting and sloughing off and like splitting open, works really well when you consider that this is a colony and not like a single organism, because if you consider that it doesn't feel like texturally all of these cells are reproducing rapidly, and eventually they run out of, like, they kind of bastardize themselves and run out of this genetic source material and can't sustain themselves, which is really interesting. And so that leads to the cells kind of starting to interpret their own shit, but they do have that genetic memory to the point where they can pull on things that maybe a cell way back when kind of was, and they're like, hey, remember dogs? We did dogs a while ago. Let's try and do a dog again. And then you see God's most fucked up interpretation of a dog, because the cells only kind of remember
that is an interesting
what it is to be a dog.
That.
That's kind of
the spider leg head.
The spider leg
yeah,
head.
exactly. They're like, we need legs.
Like,
how
right,
do we do
have
legs?
escaped.
Quick.
We gotta get away. These work.
Yeah. What's the fastest leg we can make?
So continuing talk about the effects. I watched some DVD extras and stuff with a lot of interviews with the cast, and this is DVD extras from like 1998, I believe. There's a whole like making of feature that's really, really good. Has a lot of cast interviews that I really enjoyed. A lot of Rob Bottin telling stories that are really very entertaining. There's one scene where they had a big ass fire on set because of a bunch of fumes that they weren't super aware of. It's the Norris's torso has split open, and when the doctor's arms get chopped off, those fake arms were made using a particular stretchy plastic for the skin and red Jello for the flesh. That's why it looks like that.
Yeah,
just kind of rips.
That's actually the first thing that I ever learned about the thing was how they did the chest opening scene and the arms being bit off. it was all the like hydraulics and shit that they had to put
Mhm.
together. That was the first thing
And-
that was one of the first thing I ever learned about horror special effects was the making of behind that scene. And then I did not learn anything else about horror for a long time.
Yeah. And the way that they made, like, well, I mean, they talk plenty about how they had to make, like, a perfect replica of his chest so that they could split it open in the mouth, right? They made a replica of his chest that was so effective it fooled everyone on set. Other actors had worked with this guy before, and they were just kind of making fun of him for lying on the table without a shirt on, and got all the way to the point of, like, slapping him before realizing, oh, wait, that's not actually his stomach. Because they did such a good job, and he is strapped into the table, right? And his like head and arms are sticking out, but then the rest is all just the prosthetic that they built. And he himself is looking down, and he's just like, man, they really got all the placement of my chest hair like perfect. That's really weird.
That's so freaky. I want to do that shit so bad, but I'm so bad at working in a 3D space. God, I love looking at it. That's so sick.
But then, they get to the point in that scene where the head is separating and, McCready has set it on fire. And they're like, well, all right, we need fire in this scene, so we're going to hold the burner up in between the camera and the puppet and stuff, right? The way that you do that to make something look like it's on fire. And they didn't realize that the room had filled up with weird fumes from the like plastic rubber that so much of the puppets and whatnot were made out of. So they, as soon as they click the lighter on, the whole room just goes like whoosh. And the way Rob Bottin tells this story is so entertaining, because he says the way he remembers it was like this goofy ass like picture perfect cartoon moment where the room goes whoosh and suddenly everyone's got just like black dust on them, but they're just standing there like mouths wide like oh. And he's looking at his puppet that he built so painstakingly, and he goes, oh my god, it's on fire. And across the room, someone yells, don't just stand there. Put it out, you idiot. And the way he tells it is just so insane, because it's like, to hear it, it's just like, well, shit like that doesn't happen in real life, does it? But like,
Oh, that's great.
to be a fly on the wall for the making of this
Right?
movie.
You'd have gotten fucking toasted.
Apparently, but it would have been a beautiful short life.
It seems like it was a difficult production, but everyone was really committed. It seems like all the actors were super into it. Like they really believed in like what it was going to be, and it seems like this managed not to be a troubled production in the same way as like say a Texas Chainsaw was or anything like that, where it's like everything's difficult and everyone's taking it out on everyone. In this case, it seems like everyone was having kind of a difficult time, but it wasn't so bad because they were all being like really good to each other about it, which is
it
you'll
seems
love
like
to
a
see
teamwork thing from what I've
Right.
heard of the special effects. Was everyone wanted it to look really good, and they were willing to do whatever they needed to do. And it's a very like this is the great thing about like special effects, like what they had to do with like animatronics or stop motion or like figuring out different ways to make things do things, is everyone who is into that stuff has all basically they're like mythbusters. They're like, can we make this work? How can we make this work? Can I supply, let's all just like Disney Imagineer this and throw off the top of our heads the wildest thing that we can possibly imagine, and then figure out whether or not we can make it work afterward. And I love the outcome. I wonder how much thought went into McCready's stupid hat.
I have not been able to find anything where anyone talks about it.
Oh, really?
Have you?
Allow me to introduce you to the director and Kurt Russell commentary.
Oh, fantastic.
of the
I have
thing.
not listened to this yet. I was intending to.
The-
I have more effects
so
and
the-
whatnot talk after this, but what's with the
It's
hat?
literally, it's just a quick thing where it's as he puts the hat on and is getting to the helicopter, and it's just him, both of them like giggling, and Kurt going, what were we doing with that hat?
They don't
man?"
even know.
Yeah, and it's just like, look at that hat, dude. What is that? Also, there's this really like touching moment where they're like, and this is like the DVD commentary in like the 90s, where they're like, man, can you believe we made something people still care about all
All the way
these
15
years later?
ago.
And then, that's 20 years ago now.
This is the same batch of DVD extras as the thing that I watched, wherein a lot of cast members were talking about really enjoying. Well, I mean, the guy who played Norris said literally everywhere he has ever gone, someone has told him about how much they love the thing and his involvement in it. Like, this is that kind of a project for him. Also, they talked about how they loved seeing Rob Bottin's work every time that it got brought in, and they kept making fun of him for never wanting enough light on it to be able to see it properly. Because they were all just like, you come in with this work and it's incredible and it looks this good. It's so visually interesting, and you just don't want to let anybody look at it. But they're so meticulous with how much they show, right? And it only comes across goofy and hokey like a couple of times.
Well, and yet they show it so much that, like, this is no Event Horizon. I did not feel cheated out of looking at things at any point. I felt like it was showed just enough, but I felt like if I wanted to look closer, I could pause and look closer. And it wasn't going to be like looking for that one frame where people are being eaten by maggots in fucking Event Horizon. It's like, no, I can linger on this. And then if I want to look more, I feel like I'm encouraged to, especially compared to the use of CG in, I know the C prequel to this one, where it's like, that's the kind of shit you should be hiding in shadow. When you have the ability to shoot something from any angle you want because it's physical and show off these intricacies because someone has put the effort into doing this. Not that CGI artists don't.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they do.
But
like
different.
When you have the ability, the textures and the movement and things dripping off of it and shit. The dripping.
It's KY jelly.
Or the way that the light is shining through things.
Yeah.
Like
when there's that slime trail dripping down off of the table in the foreground while Bennings is like trying to clear out that one storeroom, that shit is incredible because it's definitely just like dripping slime and ooze and whatnot, but it looks like a creature moving and thinking and like trying to be sneaky. All right, I'm gonna try and speed through the rest of what I was trying to say from this DVD extra thing here. A lot of the cast talked about originally coming in to read for different roles and then like kind of getting more interested in a different role after arriving. The guy who ends up playing Clark, the dog handler, said very specifically he became interested in playing Clark because of his interest in dogs and that kind of thing, because he felt like the character was just like more interesting than the one he originally showed up to read for, and he was really just very interested in that. So then he gets cast as Clark, and then he waxes very poetic for several minutes about working with Jade, the wolf dog.
Ooh.
Oh.
He considers the relationship he developed with Jade to be incredibly meaningful and a very big part of his experience, a very big part of what made his experience working on this movie as good and as meaningful as it was. He said this dog was super interesting to work with. It was Jade he died in 1997, I believe. I don't know. Nobody's gonna.
I got to be alive for a whole year at the same time. It was
either 97 or like. Yeah, I think it was 97. That sounds like the right number.
Well, don't break my heart and tell me otherwise, okay?
Okay, so this was the first movie that Jade was ever in, so he was not used to working with a lot of people. He was a Malamute wolf mix, full half wolf, and if you know anything about wolf dogs, wolves are not as sociable as domesticated dogs are. That is, in fact, the main hallmark of domestication, the thing that separates dogs from wolves. The reason that wolves are not technically dogs, though they are canids, and to look at them, you're like, yeah, that's a dog. But like, the term dog actually specifically refers to the domesticated. Anyways, so he did not have the kind of like, human patience that your average actor dog might, or that your average regular dog might even. At one point, the actor, as he's talking about this, he does this like imitation of this thing that the dog's face would do sometimes. And he was warned specifically to watch out for this look on the dog's face, because if you see this, it's time to give him a break. So every now and then they'd be trying to shoot and they'd see the dog would, the way that he imitated it was so funny. I'm going to try and do it for you here, but nobody listening to the podcast will see it.
I'm ready.
He said every now and then the dog would just go like,
A little
And you
sassy.
just-
A little
right?
sassy.
And when you saw that, you'd just be like, okay, everyone stay away from Jed for a few minutes. Give him space. Give him quiet. And because the dog is so, like, you know, not super social, of course he doesn't develop a relationship with any of the rest of the cast, really. So when you see those scenes where he, like, walks under the table and past everyone in the room and everything, there was some legitimate tension in the room about that, because people were a little bit nervous about being around this dog sometimes. As a result, though, of Jed being the very specific kind of dog that he is, the very specific kind of social that he is, he ends up turning in this incredible performance where it's like you watch him thinking as he walks around and looks at things. Does anyone else get this impression?
No, the dog honestly does feel like really conscious throughout the entire thing. It's the coolest thing about it is that if you know the dog is Das Ding, then you know that he's supposed to be going around like, wonder what's going on.
You see him acting weird and you're like, well, yeah.
Because the dog is a wolf, he's going around like, why the fuck am I in a movie, man? I didn't want to be here. Looking wistfully through a magazine going, you know, I could be here right now pointing at some random ass mountain. This is where all my friends used to
Isolated
live.
Forests
I could be
magazine.
there. I should be
then,
hunting a black metal band, and instead I'm in Antarctica.
Yeah, but then they they put him in the kennel, and he acts so like stiff and weird around the other dogs, and you're like, well, that's odd. But then his head splits open, and you're like, oh, he's John Carpenter's The Thing. That's why he was acting weird.
Jade, please. It's Das Ding.
Oh yeah, John Carpenter's Das Ding.
Das ist eine Das Ding.
Anybody have other things they want to say, or do we want to dive into Noah's
I
notes?
am talking too much, but I did want to touch
No,
on my
here's the
spaghetti
thing.
western thing.
Oh, I want to also talk about the
yeah.
spaghetti western
Yeah.
thing
This
just
is a
real
me and
quick.
Nina episode,
First of all,
ultimately.
I
wanna
have
talk
nothing to
more,
say
but I
about
tell
westerns,
ya.
but I'm enjoying hearing you all
Aw.
talk.
okay, so first of all, the hat is my primary evidence towards this
hat.
being a spaghetti western.
The fucking hat. Aw. What is the deal with
I'm
the fucking
lying.
hat? It's like rectangular.
So one of the things I love it so much. It's like a Mountie hat, but the brim is flipped up. I don't know what's
It's
happening.
just
And
so-
apparently neither did Kurt and John.
Where did it come from? What's going on? Anyway.
Okay, so actually we were watching spaghetti westerns recently. Specifically, Noah and I watched the Dollars trilogy again. I've watched Once Upon a Time in the West a lot. And we also watched The Hateful Eight, which is inspired by spaghetti westerns in a big way. This movie has a lot of things going for it. Here are my primary points. One, double crossing and paranoia is a really, really strong point for most spaghetti westerns
really
that I've
is.
seen, especially for the Dollars trilogy.
Especially, yeah.
It's also worked into modern westerns a lot. It's worked into The Hateful Eight a lot. It's worked into Red Dead Redemption 2 a lot. It is something that has remained a hallmark of the genre, and obviously it's really prevalent in The Thing. Masculinity is a really strong talking point in the contradiction of different masculine personalities.
Well, and
But-
exerting their
and this is
masculinity
really-
on each other in the case of like
Yes.
that's a very, very big thing in Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, especially.
Yes. But the ending scene of this movie reminds me of a scene in For a Few Dollars More
The
in
one I
which
haven't
then this is a spoiler.
fine.
Okay. The two, Clint Eastwood's character and the what's his face? Scary angel eyes man. The two of them have been at odds this whole movie. They're using each other constantly. They're double crossing each other constantly. They know that they're going after the same guy who has double crossed them as well multiple times. And the villain has been looking at this locket with this woman inside of it throughout the entire movie. And at the end, it plays music when it's open. It's a music box locket. And in the final standoff between Angel Eyes and the villain, the music stops playing on the villain's locket and starts up again.
Ooh.
And Clint Eastwood's character has stolen a locket from Angel Eyes that has the same woman in it and plays the same music. And these two have been at odds this entire time. And there's this moment as Clint Eastwood's character facilitates this revenge for someone who he doesn't even have a kind relationship with. But he respects the revenge quest, the masculinity, the need to avenge his sister, who is the woman in the locket. Like, it's such a moment that reminds there is this respect in this specifically masculine story of the need to do what you got to do. And
well, ain't that just
thing,
Westerns, God.
True. And in The Thing, I find, especially the ending scene, there is that antagonistic respect there of
that's a good phrase, antagonistic respect. I love that, actually.
And so we have all of that. And then in the very heart of it, we have the fact that this movie is scored by Ennio Morricone.
Yeah.
And I really cannot argue any further after that.
And to me, I didn't even offer the context of this when we started talking about this. When I said my spaghetti Western thing, for listeners' context, for, I don't know, maybe like a year now, I've been saying, not on the podcast, I don't think, but I think I might have mentioned it on the podcast, actually, but at least I've been talking privately an awful lot about how, to me, when I watch John Carpenter's The Thing, it follows the flow and the cinematography and whatnot in the style of like a spaghetti Western. To me, the camera work to this feels so spaghetti Western. Of course, the score being Ennio Morricone is very, very spaghetti Western, lends it an awful lot of that feel in the way that it gets implemented. Although apparently there's a little bit of contention between Carpenter and Ennio about who actually scored the movie, because if you ask John Carpenter, he says, I supplied some like sound effects and stuff, and the rest of the score is entirely him. But Morricone says, by the time I showed up, Carpenter already had a score. I don't know what they hired me for.
That sounds correct. It sounds like this is so true.
And Carpenter scores his own movies anyway, so it's kind of like, okay, anytime I'm hearing a lot of synthesizers, I'm betting that's John.
It felt like he arranged what John had already kind of put together, because I definitely like feel some of his style there.
It definitely feels like one of Morricone's kind of soundtracks to me.
The hallmarks of his composing are not there.
Not the same way.
So I think so I definitely, that makes so much sense, because I had been wondering, I'm like, there is something like, I don't want to say atmospheric, but that would
there's something else going on.
Vaguely not. So that makes so much sense.
Also, though, the characters, the particular manner that this ensemble cast has is very much, feels very spaghetti Western-ish. McCready himself is very much the guy with no name who rode in from out of town kind of archetype.
Yes.
And
positive.
Also,
can I ask a dumb question?
Oh, sure.
I'll let you finish that thought, but I have a dumb question.
So also, The Hateful Eight takes a lot of cues from The Thing. Tarantino has said as much, and it's also pretty readily apparent in movements of the plot and whatnot, blah, blah, blah. Ennio Morricone also did the score to that, and the score for The Hateful Eight actually includes a couple of unused tracks from the original score to The Thing.
I am so I am
hilarious counterpoint between
no one would
these
say
two
that
things.
I'm busting a nut.
Hilarious counterpoint between these two things. The Thing soundtrack was nominated for a Razzie for worst soundtrack, which is insane to me.
Oh, that was the Razzie nom?
Worst
that makes
soundtrack.
sense.
It was on Metacritic and I couldn't click on it, so I couldn't.
But then
see
the Hateful Eight soundtrack won like an Oscar.
Because it's amazing. But yeah, no, that makes sense to me though, because I think the kind of hallmarks to me for what a bad soundtrack are different from what they would have been in the 80s.
I suppose.
So, I
don't think it's doing anything bad though. I would, my Goblin Brain, sorry, not Goblin Brain, but like Dario Argento Goblin Brain wants it to be going stronger, wants it to be doing, I'd like for it to be doing more like leaning harder on its leitmotifs, but like the leitmotifs are kind of actually there. It's just a matter of whether you're paying close enough attention for them. Anyways, Emma, what was your thing?
I want to know. I'm a stupid question.
What is a spaghetti
I
western?
knew you were going to ask this.
And how does it differ
So-
from a
So-
regular western,
it's a
or
really,
are
really
all
simple
western
answer.
spaghetti
It's
westerns
incredibly simple. Spaghetti westerns are made by Italians.
feature Italian
They are
cast?
made by Italians who really like westerns and wanted to make westerns,
Okay.
so they just started making them in Italy and shipping American actors out to be in their westerns.
Yeah.
Like in Once
Exactly
Upon a Time
like
in
that, yeah.
Hollywood.
That's exactly because Once Upon
yeah.
a Time in Hollywood is based on Sergio Leone's movies, which are all spaghetti movies. So
So early
So,
Clint Eastwood, like Fistful of Dollars
thematically,
and
why
Thematically,
why differentiate saying this movie reminds you of a
So,
spaghetti
a
western
lot of-
versus just a regular
we
western?
all have
Yeah.
very
The
big answers for
differences-
this.
I haven't
Noah
talked,
hasn't
so
talked.
I
We're
can
gonna let
talk.
him go first.
No, Noah's like, shut up.
So a big one for stuff like this is because a lot of spaghetti westerns were revisionist westerns versus
Kicked off the
American
revisionist
westerns,
western
which
as
are
a
more.
concept. It should be noted.
Yeah, a lot of American westerns are more traditional good guy, bad guy stuff, and a lot of revisionist westerns have less of a clear moral delineation, which which is a contentious point for a lot of
Hays Code and such.
John Wayne. Well, no, it's a contentious point for a lot of the John
Also.
Wayne Western actors who are like, Western is when the good guy beats up the Indians
yeah.
and the Mexicans and the black people because we're the good white guy. And it's
bro.
like, hey, you fucking sack of shit.
And you can see Clint Eastwood with Outlaw Josie Wales trying to
Yeah.
wrestle with both of those storytelling types because he's taking the good guy thing, but he's also taking the moral ambiguity and the like kind of intricacies of spaghetti westerns and trying to mash them
Yeah.
together. And I don't think
Well, and
it
then
works.
also with like Pale Rider, where he decided to make the villain be a rich capitalist white guy, which is you
mean
solid
he
for-
decided to make the villain John Wayne from McClintock?
The villain is just John Wayne's character from McClintock. Yeah, that is fully what that is.
But the other main difference is the tone. In a lot of ways, spaghetti westerns, especially the ones that Sergio Leone made, have a very slow, meticulous, methodical tone to them. They're kind of the like anti this is to me the movies that I watch to prove to myself that I haven't ruined my attention span, because the most famous scenes in a lot of these movies are the scenes where nothing is fucking happening. The opening to Once Upon a Time in the West is several minutes of just repetitive annoying noises to set up the tension of a standoff, and then Morricone's soundtrack punches in really hard with this harmonica and all of the tension breaks all at once. So that's kind of like the same. It's the tension building works really, really well in spaghetti westerns versus the westerns that I've seen that were not that are much more classic tonal storytelling of like a hero's journey story.
And
or
a
whatever.
massive set of factors for that is something that I have talked about as being specific to Italian directors before, actually, on this podcast, which is visual storytelling styles. You can do really slow, meticulous kind of, nothing's really happening yet kind of scenes, because while you're doing your annoying noises or your silence for tension or whatever, there's a lot of focus on doing a particular kind of camera work, showing certain things and like telling you a lot about what's going on just through like, the classic like close-up shot of the gunfighter's hand twitching before he reaches for his gun.
It expects you to
thing.
put the pieces together. Specifically with Once Upon a Time in the West opening, you're seeing different shots of this train station. You're getting a taste of what the world is like, where we are in America, who the people we are about to meet are. And then you start to form these questions of like, well, but why are they there? And I think the opening to The Thing does the same thing with the helicopter and the dog, where it's like, okay, I'm putting the pieces together. There's a dog. That's normal for this part of the world, I guess. Maybe. I actually don't know. There are research people here who have dogs. Oh, wait a minute. They're shooting at the dog. Why are they shooting at the dog? They don't speak English, which is another thing. There's not a lot of spoken English, or spoken words at all in spaghetti westerns early on in the stories. Good, the Bad, and the Ugly has a bunch of like vignette scenes to introduce you to the characters. It's a lot like that. So yeah, I think the storytelling style of like building up this uneasy tension over the opening, because the title sequence, Noah said, is the same as the original Thing movie, right?
It's very cool. Yeah,
it's very old-timey.
the way the title burns into the screen, which I can't remember how they did the effect. It had something to do with setting plastic on fire and flash paper.
So they had basically they had a light and they had a partially transparent thing with the lettering on it and stuff, and they just put a black plastic bag in between them and burned it.
That's so cool.
I think it's cool as hell.
But that's like very old school sci-fi,
Very
like
much.
classic sci-fi.
Yeah, which is how the original one did its trick as well. If it's not broke,
don't fix it.
Right.
And then we cut from that, so that's like the title sequence, but then we cut from that into the introductory scene, which like put in place with, now we know this is an alien story, and then we have all of these questions. I don't know.
Yeah.
To me, that's what to me even sets the stage. Versus like with the Western, similarly, we go in knowing it's a Western, and then we start to form all of these questions.
So hopefully that's all decent answers about what a spaghetti Western is.
Yes,
any
thank
Western
you.
that you watch that was made after like the 70s is going to bear an awful lot of influence from spaghetti Westerns, because they were simply that good. They kind of revolutionized the genre. But back in like the 60s, American directors were simply not doing that shit, and I tell you what,
they were phoning
it in. Absolutely.
Well, it's because that is the exact story Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is telling in a lot of ways, by having our main character be the old star of an old Western TV show.
Yeah.
You know?
And now my
and then-
agent wants me to go do Italian movies, so I gotta go to Italy.
Yeah,
'cause that's
exactly.
the
But
way
he's
you
in
do
a
that.
story that is influenced by the revolutionized storytelling of spaghetti westerns and of Italian cinema. So I don't know. I just think Tarantino, but like, yeah.
Unfortunately, he's right about a bunch of stuff.
Unfortunately, I
I'll
agree
never
with
stop
him on
hating him, but I do
Italians.
like a bunch of his work.
But yeah.
So this is the thing.
Anyway, that's the thing. I think that
We've
is the
got
thing.
notes.
Except
I'm told
Noah's
we
notes.
have notes.
Yes, Noah's beautiful notes.
Noah's notes are, hey, hello. I have 3-page of Noah note.
I'm so excited to read a lot of these notes from Noah.
Maybe it's more like 2.5 page of Noah
That's
note.
not a lot.
It's not a huge amount.
By your usual standards. It is a fairly common
It's the
seen
issue
movie
of-
before kind of number, though.
Yeah. So
I
no-
think that there's actually some thoughts in here, which is
Cool.
great, because Noah before is very tired and his voice is given
Right.
out. Noah now is dialed in and focused, reading his own notes, going, well, I really love the murder mystery element we get. You know, once the reveal happens, all you can think is, wait, what about the dog visiting the one guy? We know he wasn't on the
Stop
chopper.
reading your own
John
notes.
Carpenter was,
You're breaking
John
format.
Carpenter was specifically kind of motivated by the original story, which is a novella called Who Goes There? It came out in the 30s, I believe. And this adaptation of it is a lot more faithful to the source material than the Thing from Another World was. John Carpenter said
That's
he
what I've
was
heard,
very
yeah.
specifically motivated by the murder mystery aspect and how it felt very Agatha Christie to him. Very
It is.
specifically
It
tagging,
is.
and then
It
there
very
were
Have any
is.
of you read the novella?
Of course. It's And Then There Were None again. How many times am I going to watch And Then There Were None this year?
One more.
This puts me at 3.
Depends
So-
how many times you want to
Yeah,
watch
if your
Hamlet
entire
with me.
life is just And Then There Were None and Hamlet over and over, bouncing
Yeah.
between them.
Listeners' context, I did watch And Then There Were None, like an actual adaptation, and then Abigail is an adaptation of And Then There Were None, and then this is an adaptation of And Then
Sort
There
of.
Were None. So we're kind of in the same way that
Mm-hmm.
Abigail is, where it's like, yeah, you can definitely see it there. Okay. Oh, and fucking Hateful Eight.
And Hateful Eight.
So
Also-
fuck me, I guess.
Also, I want to say, as someone who watched the original one, I can't remember if
did you?
anyone else here has
The
watched.
Thing from Another World?
Oh, ages ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I gabbed it like
Yeah, he did.
3 months
I
ago.
remember this.
I think it was like one of like 17 things I gabbed, so it's okay that you forgot. It is a so by the numbers old
Oh,
sci-fi
totally.
movie. An alien lands and they're like, oh my god, it's reproducing in our fucking greenhouse. and it doesn't impersonate
Right,
anyone.
it's just a
It's
guy in a
literally just
suit.
growing more fungus men.
And this is the thing that John
Yeah.
Carpenter was so excited about when he saw Rob Bottin's storyboard ideas, because he was like, oh my god, it's not going to be a guy in a suit. Yes, all right. Because that was something he had been really nervous about. He's a big fan of the original and really wanted to actually surpass it and do something real. And he was so afraid
Yeah,
they were going
but
to
the
end up with
original
a
is
rubber
just
suit.
a bodybuilder in a funny hat.
That used
As
to be
many
all you
of
had
those
to
monsters
do.
are.
You know, it used to be
Back in the
Even
day,
just-
you had a hat that looked like a brain and a man that looked like a triangle.
Even
just
Star Wars
paint
does
Lou
that shit.
Ferrigno green, and that's the Hulk, you know? And
Lou Ferrigno can be something
we
so
could go
special
back
to me
that,
for no
you know?
reason at
I
all.
mean, if the MCU would just cast like a I don't know, just to throw out a random bodybuilder's name, like a Chris Bumstead, and just paint him green and do nothing, you know, maybe
We could save the
maybe
MCU.
we could fix it.
Okay, I'm going to read Noah's notes now because I am starting to lose track of my existence.
Yeah, and this podcast is getting lengthy.
Unfortunately, that's a you problem,
I know.
Jade. Here we go. Noah says, I love Mac playing the chess computer. He's so me. Yeah, Mac's a real gamer.
He is,
This is
he
one
is,
thing we know
yeah.
about Mac. Noah
He'd
says
be playing Civ in a modern adaptation.
he would too.
Real.
And he'd be getting just as pissed as he
Oh,
does
more.
in this
He'd be
opening.
rage quitting it.
Listen, the computers in Civ cheat. It's just a fact.
McCready is already
Noah really
saying
is McCready.
this.
Noah says, I'm skipping over that because you already said that. Noah says, Mac refusing to remember that the other group is Norwegian and not Swedish is great. I love how Mac, that's such a good characterization for
He
Mac,
doesn't
is
give a
that he
shit
is
about
a little bit does not give a shit. We really glazed over, and we
did.
can't get into it now. We glazed over how fucking dope the Norwegian base is. That was like maybe part of my favorite.
Yeah, I
sequence
kind of
was
tagged
just
it during the synopsis, but oh my god, it's so good.
Yeah.
Can't emphasize enough
It's
that
so,
this movie
so
cannot
good.
be told in an audio medium. You've got to see this shit. Oh my god.
The questions that you are presented with that
It's
get
the
answered
visual
later through the movie. This movie
storytelling.
does a really great job of setting up and paying off. Noah says, love how Doc is like, hey man, I don't know what this research was, but I think it's really important that we keep it just in case. And Mac is like, yeah, whatever, Four Eyes. I'm gonna look at the
He
rest
fully
of it.
is doing that shit. Yeah, he's like, yeah, if you're into that nerd shit, I guess. Like,
Noah says, God, I love the big first reveal of Das Ding.
it always shocks me how early the reveal hits too. It's like a half hour into an hour and 49 runtime,
Because-
and it's just like, yeah, it's the monster, it's a dog. Here you go.
Because there's so much else they can still
Yeah.
do that they haven't
Yeah.
yet, and I love that.
I'm here for dusting. You're here for
and
dusting.
we're getting John
Let's just do
Carpenter's
it.
dusting.
Noah says, I'm not saying they're wrong, but I feel like if I saw that huge ass monster, I'd have let it burn a tiny bit longer. That's just
I
me,
do
though.
love how you're constantly
can
watching
tell.
them do the math in their heads where they're like, has it burned long enough? We don't want the whole building to burn down, but we've got to put it out at some point.
No, I knowing that they had a lot of fire issues makes so much more
had one
sense why they
incident.
are so quick to put it out. That's a lot of issues.
That and the fact that they knew they were breathing in the fumes of burning plastic whenever they were
It's-
setting this shit on
It's
fire.
so funny seeing them jump on it so quickly, and it's like, oh, this was because they were gonna get in trouble for burning down the Universal lot. I understand.
Noah says, Childs calls it voodoo bullshit, and Noah says this is clearly sci-fi. So get your shit straight. Noah says Blair got lit the fuck up and made what in hindsight is the correct call. I really again empathize with Blair and his immediate reaction being, I have got to make sure that this shit does not happen. Like I can't imagine, because it is very well done to the point where you feel that same like sinking feeling. It's a very similar visual scene to Ripley figuring out what the mission really is and how expendable the crew is on their ship. But that's like, okay, bummer for you. This is, oh fuck. The whole world is at stake here, and I cannot tell the others this because they will not react correctly. Yeah. I have to do something myself before I even present the others with it is so good. Holding all of like humanity in your hand in that moment, you really feel it for him. Noah says, I forgot about the fake out torn uniform moment. That's another thing in favor of sentient, intelligent, manipulative thing is framing.
It appears as him for a second. Is like, do you have any ideas on how to figure out who Das Ding is?
It's not me.
And he's like, yeah, I got a couple ideas. Cool. And then he kills the guy.
I love that because, again, I love the idea of it choosing to frame McCready because it sees him as a threat and being like, I fucking hate this guy. I'm going to go beyond killing him. I'm going to make sure everyone else kills him.
Not only am I going to kill him, I'm going to drag his name through the mud while I do it. Launching a targeted campaign of harassment on twitter.com.
Nova says, let's rush him. He's not going to blow us all up. And then there's the little Telltale Games notification that said nobody liked that. They all do just stare at whoever it was that suggested that. They're like, no. That goes back to the whole high school clique thing where it's like, if you are not in the position you think you're in and you make a suggestion, you are getting laughed off the stage. Noah says, Palmer's fire stunt fucking kills. All the fire in this looks so good. You really don't realize what we've lost with CGI fire until you see what we've got here versus what we have now. It's one of those things where it's like, it's easier to say in this context versus like Texas Chainsaw, where it's like people were like going through it. With this, it's like, that was dangerous in a like kind of fun science way where it's like, we should not do that anymore for the safety. But the fact that we did it and got cool effects out of it makes you question whether ethics are important.
No, but if I could float
constantly
this,
has me being like, I don't know, maybe this whole safety thing is shit. I don't know.
No, but here's the thing. It's not as it is obvious. It is always dangerous.
But
these type of fire stunts are so much safer now than they ever have been. People just don't do it because they have to pay out insurance if anything happens.
Stunt performers are expensive and they deserve it.
Exactly. It's an undermining of an industry is why we don't have it now. It is not because it's not possible. It's not because it's too dangerous to morally do. It's because studios don't want to pay stunt performers who are like, yeah, you can set me on fire. Oh, you do have to pay me the fire fee, but you can set me on fire.
In which Noah was briefly possessed by Twitter Brandon and in a very valid way.
Also, I just watched a video of Quentin Tarantino talking about how he hates CGI gunshots because he's like, you don't get the same orange flare that you get from shooting blanks out of a gun as you do when you put in a
he has talked about
I
this
would be
a lot.
talking about the recoil. Your actor is not going to behave appropriately if they're holding a prop that doesn't jump the way that a firing gun does.
There's a lot of reasons to go for it, and people will continue to put up the same issue. Not good. People have died from blanks before, but every single time that this type of stuff happens, it is an issue of people mishandling, people carrying around too many things, people not taking these things seriously as harmful weapons, and instead just being like, this is the prop gun that we CG in a thing. If people take things seriously, just like the fire stunts, these things are safe and workable and make a higher quality product. But if people aren't willing to do that, if people aren't willing to actually,
pay
then
the people
maybe
to take the precautions, stop short staffing and overworking these tradesmen, like there's a lot of reasons that things have gone the way they have.
Yeah.
And it all
Stop
starts
paying
with
certain actors like $100 million to star in your movie. Like, spread that to other people and other things in your movie.
Please.
Speaking of which, just as a fun fact here, Kurt Russell got paid like 8 times the amount that the other actors all got paid in this movie.
Not surprising.
That makes sense. He's like the only name anyone knew in this movie.
And
there's Wilford Brimley,
who was cast
Wilford Brimley is in this movie.
Being just kind of a, I don't know, that's some dude.
And now he has diabetes.
That was what they were after with him.
Don't you forget to mention my boy Keith David.
Keith David was not a big deal yet. This is early
love
enough in
him,
his
though.
career. He wasn't a big deal yet. I do. I tell you what, I have never disliked him in anything that I've seen him in. He's good as hell in this.
Noah
as well.
says.
Noah says.
Noah says, I'm very sleepy, so. Noah says, the cuts with each person going from guy to guy getting untied is so funny. Child yelling and then it hard cutting to Jerry alone and pissed as hell is so funny.
I love Jerry so much
Gary.
because to me, Gary,
Gary.
what the fuck
I can't
ever.
read Noah's notes, so.
That's
That's
the
Noah's
problem.
He spelled it weird.
I spelled it how the subtitles said it.
Oh, well, my bad. Anyway, that's
Let me-
pretty
let
much
me
it for
fact
Noah's
check that.
notes.
Yeah, okay, I put an E instead of an A. Anyway,
Haha, that
I'm-
makes all the difference.
I'm a huge fan because of the dog approaches the shadow. Because while sure it might have been a stagehand never seen in the show or in the movie, it looks like Gary's
It kinda
shadow.
does.
He's the only guy with a fucking styled hair and the fucking military look. So the dog walks in there, I'm like, oh my
Gary.
God, the captain's been got. And every single time I'm like, I know the captain didn't get got because he didn't get got. But every single time I see the shadow, I'm like, holy shit, the captain got got. If they had done a bald looking guy, I immediately would have no idea who it was because there's enough guys with buzz cuts that I'd be like, could have been anyone. I love
Anyway.
this
Love
movie.
it.
That's it for Noah's notes. This has been a great 100th episode. Emma?
Have we talked about what we're doing next?
Yeah, we're
Yes,
watching
we
Saw 2.
we're
We're
watching
about
Saw
to
2.
announce it.
That's right.
Oh,
That's
right.
I'm
Yeah,
actually
too.
really looking forward to Saw 2 because now I've seen all the rest of the Saw movies and I have a better idea of what Saw 2 means in the grand scheme of the rest of them. So I'm looking, and I just rewatched Saw 1, so I'm very much looking forward to watching this again. We will have a guest
have a
next
Yes.
episode.
I need to touch base. I'm still pretty sure we're good for
right.
it. We will have a guest who I will not name drop just in case it doesn't work. Just
That's
in
super
case it
fair.
falls
Yeah.
through.
Billy the puppet himself.
Whoa!
But
Tobin
you can look
Bell?
up at Carousel Shotgun on Twitter, which is this person's Saw alt account. And that's all
An
that I'll
entire
say.
alt
I
account
have-
just for Saw posting. Oh,
Yes.
this is a dedicated fan.
This is
Oh no, the Sawtism is strong here.
I have a
Are they
lot
gonna
of
get mad if I don't like the movie?
Spoilers. I haven't been a big fan of Saw 2
It's a 10 out of 10,
so,
everybody.
ugh.
I don't even know if Saw 2 is one of their favorite.
Saw 2 is their second favorite Saw
Okay.
movie. They've seen
No, I
it
know.
47 times, I
Oh,
think.
I am so excited to talk
Oh,
to
wow.
this person. I'm so excited. Anyway, you guys will have to find out exactly what's going on with that
Holy
next time.
shit.
Until then, we have been Casual Obsession, the horror movie podcast where we talk about horror movies. You can find us at Casual Horror Pod on Twitter, and you can now find us at our brand new website, which will be linked in the description of this podcast and video.
Casual Horror Pod also.
Casual Horror Pod.
Yeah.
Um,
Who knows? Maybe Jade will write an article about how the thing is a
Maybe I do
Western.
that, actually.
maybe she will. I hope so because I'm not gonna do it. I have to write about fucking Resident Evil and Blade and Hellboy and shit and Constantine.
You'll be
so
having fun with
that's
all
what I'm
that,
writing about.
though.
I will be. I am having fun with it. But yeah, we're going to publish articles and stuff there about our own personal interests and stuff we aren't able to fit on the podcast. So definitely check that out. Me personally, I'm Nina. You can find me at Nina Wolverina on Twitter. I am still there. Unfortunately, I'm starting to be more active on Blue Sky. So you can find me there if you want to see my art. You can find me on Instagram and on Tumblr at Nina Wolverina with a 3 where the E ought to be.
I'm Noah. You can find me as Bubba the Bad, BUBBADABAD. You can currently, as this episode comes out, you can see if I failed Hooptober. I probably did. Or not. Who knows? But I'm on Letterboxd. Shut the fuck up. I'm on Letterboxd. I'm on Twitter. I'm cross-posting everything to Blue Sky right now to try and take off. Because Twitter's just mobile game ads for me right now, and it's the most devastating update to the platform since Elon took over. Is like I'm seeing the same 17 posts, and that's it. It's such a bummer. It sucks ass.
I
It's
was
finally
literally
dying.
looking through my art account today, and because I have a secret not like where I post my art, but where I just follow a shit ton of artists. So my feed is like all
Nice.
art that I like to look at, and I'll like scroll through that a lot. I literally was on it today, and the entire like For You tab was like TikToks that had nothing to do with
Yep.
art at all.
I don't know what.
It took
Oh.
me scrolling like 20 posts to finally get like a single art post. I was like, what is this shit?
It's crazy. Something happened in the last like actual week and a half that tanked the site in a brand new terrible way.
Yeah. Meanwhile, as far as art goes, I can say that that's all that my Blue Sky feed is right now, to the point where it's actually starting to frustrate me because I do love art and artists, but I also was on Twitter for other things. So maybe I just need to follow other people and
Yeah, just start following more people.
I'm following lots of people who are not artists. I think that this happens every time that Twitter or something like has a problem, is that artists freak out and advertise other social media as the new place for artists, and then it's like there's no one there except artists. I follow plenty of people on Blue Sky. Only the artists are posting every day. So when I go onto my onto my chronological feed, it's like art, reposts, art shares, people who are trying to have good etiquette with the art shares, so they're retweeting everyone who replied to the art share. One post from Gail Simone, more art, and it's like, I love seeing art. I want to see goobers as well, please. So
Yeah.
I think it's another wave, hopefully, and it'll die down and people will start being normal again. But Tumblr's still my favorite,
Yeah.
unfortunately for me.
Speaking of which, I have been Jade.
yeah.
You can find me on Tumblr at What Is It You Pray For, on Letterboxd at The Fakest Fan.
Oh, I'm on Letterboxd too. Sorry, I'm on Letterboxd. Nina Wolverine.
Nina Wolverina, Letterboxd.
Sorry.
And
Yeah.
I'm Emma. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it. You can find me on Letterboxd at Emma Panada. And you can find me in our Discord server.
Yeah.
But thanks so much. We appreciate you. We'll see you next time for Saw 2. We're excited.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to it. And
Yeah.
we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye.
Goodbye.
Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun.